Here we are, Steve Maxwell Jr. and Ray Byrne.
Thanks.
Thanks, Rob. All right, so yeah, I do a lot of podcasts, and we've got them up on YouTube. Just look up Maxwell Drum Shop, and you can see all kinds of cool stuff. But we haven't done one yet, so yeah, we kind of go back a little bit. We've been buddies. You used to be kind of from around this neck of the woods. You want to talk about maybe?
Yeah.
Well, like how you got into cymbal making, a little bit about what got you started.
So I saw your band play at least once in a small town nearby, your jazz combo, and what's the name of that place? Is it still there?
Byrne, yeah.
Yeah, well,
Old Byrne Hall.
The city of Byrne is still there, thankfully. But my original shop and where I lived was in farm country, really just 15 minutes from here. And so what's ironic about the show having moved back out here is that I moved 3 years ago to Cleveland. So otherwise I'd have you all over to my house to see the shop and all the chickens I used to have, but I'm no longer there. But the connection was made with us, and then also with Noah, who's right over there. Noah, if you want to say hi.
Yeah, our good friend Noah.
Yeah, he works at Maxwell's, and Noah's a great guy, and he also did some work for me for a while. I had him do all the least favorite things of cymbal smithing, and in the end, I remember the last day he worked for me before I moved, I told him, the cymbal you hammered out, it's indiscernible between one of my own or yours. So he's a real threat. I'm going to have to do something to prevent him from taking over my business. So.
Yeah, we're lucky to have Noah.
Yeah, no, he's great.
He's the best.
He's great.
So yeah, maybe just could you maybe describe like your process? Because I know your cymbals, I've really seen them evolve, and
thankfully so have I.
Yeah, absolutely. Every show there's probably a couple cymbal smiths. This one more than ever before, at least in my memory. But I remember you probably because I saw you at the show before you came to my trio or quartet play. Yeah. But tell me a little bit about like the evolution and the process. Don't give away too many secrets, but
yeah, sure. So I've been in business as Byrne cymbals for now 7 years. This past month. So I'm 7 years into it officially as a business, but I started modifying cymbals and really just destroying cymbals going back to when I was 13. I think one of the great things about our instrument drum set is it can be continuously modified and changed, and you can swap things out, and there's just so many different textures and colors that you can bring into play. If you've seen in Chipotle's marketing, that they'll tell you there's at least 65,000 different ways to get something at Chipotle, but there's only a couple dozen ingredients behind the counter, right? Because it's just the way you mix it up or add or subtract things and that kind of thing. When you think of the drum set, it's nearly infinite. And I think that adds sort of a mystique to the instrument that we play.
Yeah, right on.
That it can be modified and you can swap things out. But the other part of the mystique of drums, not to hate on drums themselves, but most of us probably feel that way about cymbals, that there's just something elusive. There's a perfect cymbal out there. You've never found it, but it must exist. So you go on the hunt and you keep on looking, and sometimes you get close, and then after a while, it's really interesting. Cymbals change. They are kind of a consumable product in a long lifespan kind of sense. In many of the ways that like acoustic guitars are, like pre-war Martin guitars. Because I have a background as a luthier. I did guitar repair and building.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. That's part of the evolution. So I'll give you a quick timeline. So nice. 13, I start messing around with cymbals, start wrecking cymbals, trying to hammer them in my parents' basement with like a regular builder's hammer and trying to put rivets in and that kind of thing. And my interest in instrument building just grew and grew to the point where I started trying to do basic repairs on friends' guitars. And then when I was 19, much to my parents' displeasure, I quit college and I went to the Roberto Venn School of Luthery in Phoenix, Arizona. It's the oldest guitar building school in America. And then for the next roughly 11, 12 years, my full-time job was in guitar repair as a drummer. Go figure. But as a drummer, I was always very well connected to guitars to play with. So in a way, it made perfect sense. Of course, I play a little bit of guitar, but not nearly as well. So the heart pull was always to go back to drums and cymbals. There's always sort of that mystery of cymbals. And then there's like those moments in your life where something changes and you remember the moment. I can remember where I was sitting the first time I saw the short Roberto Spizzichino documentary on Vimeo. Some of you have seen that. And I was like, I know what I want to do now. Like,
nice. Yes, Spiz is a big influence for you.
This is possible, because I felt, as much as I knew, just as a layperson, as far as it was concerned in the manufacturer, it's such a big manufacturing process, and you need to be able to melt metal and do all these, really, big machinery type of things to be able to produce a cymbal. But it opened my eyes to the realization that you could order cymbal blanks. There's companies willing to sell you raw bronze, and you can work with it from there, and you can use it as sort of a blank canvas to work with and move.
Yeah, you don't have to have a foundry. Right?
Yeah, so that mystery of the cymbal that doesn't exist, when you get down into that level where now you're trying to make the cymbal that doesn't exist, you take like 20 steps back because you realize making cymbals, in one way, the manufacture of cymbals, you could say, well, it looks like a relatively simple process. Once you have the blank, that you're hammering it, you're giving it shape, and you're lathing it. But there's so many levels and so many small variances in literally every part of the process that, again, just having to be self-taught. I watched as much as was out there on YouTube, watching factory tour videos on YouTube and that kind of thing. But there's not a book. There's nothing that you can really. So I just had to ruin a bunch of material and keep on making mistakes until I found something I was comfortable with.
Did you start you said early on you were modifying cymbals?
I use that term lightly.
Sure. Probably
yeah.
like Zildjians or?
Yeah, whatever. I mean, whatever I could get my hands on. Most of the cymbals I had were I was a kid.
Sure.
So they were like hand-me-down B8 type of cymbals. So I try and hammer on them to thinking that I could, alter them in some way, or if you've all tried adding rivets to a cymbal, that kind of thing, feeling like, this is really this will
Sure.
put it over the edge.
Right.
This will do it.
It needs something.
Yeah,
something.
Just something. 5 rivets in a cluster that make no sense right here. That's what I should do. So
Sure.
It was stuff like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. So you, are you located now? Can you remind me?
I'm on the east side of Cleveland.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
You're liking it out there?
Yeah, well, so going from a rural to a very urban environment is very different. So my shop now, it's a very small space. It's really the size. My primary shop space is the size of one of the exhibitor booths. It's really tight. So it's a double-walled, soundproof room, rubber
Nice.
flooring, tons of insulation, and that kind of thing. Really no ventilation, so it gets really hot in there. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, I do all my hammering and lathing in there, and other tooling and other stuff is outside the room in other areas.
Sure.
So I have a very patient wife to allow me to have that actually inside our house, our residence. So yeah.
So think back. What's maybe a cymbal that you remember that you played on that you really, really liked? Just to get an idea of because what kind of style of music do you usually play when you're drumming?
So yeah, I would like to. I really don't. My life is very busy, so ironically, I don't really have much of an opportunity to play.
Sure.
I'd like to think of myself as more of a jazz musician.
I'm actually kind of the same.
Yeah.
I'm always
but then
at the
I've
shop.
seen you play, and I've seen other guys that are so talented. I'm like, I don't even know if I should say I play drums. I'm more of a drum admirer that incidentally happens to try to play. But I mean, yeah, that's that's the nuance, though. That's what I'm, in terms of like what I listen to, the kind of music I listen to, that'd probably be a better way to answer the question.
Yeah, sure.
Every day I'm listening to like Bill Evans, Brad Meldau, and
Oh, nice,
of course, the drummers that go with those guys. So
Yeah, you make some great like jazz cymbals. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I tell you've been checking out the records,
Yeah, so that's
trying to get
that's
that
the
sound.
listening that I'm doing of what I'm trying to steer my cymbals towards primarily.
So like old K's, like that sound. When were you first kind of exposed to that?
Yeah, just again
Coming off Binder's thing, I figure.
Yeah.
Bring that up.
Again, just through my youth, and actually the way I ended up playing drums as a kid. My dad's best friend from childhood played drums, and he had a number of drum sets in his basement, and he had a ton of gear in his basement, and tons of cymbals in his basement, and he had old K's and that kind of thing. So, I mean, probably like a lot of you have a lot of drums somewhere in your house, and there's some kid that comes over and sees all of it and is just overwhelmed by it and is like, man, this is awesome. So that was always exciting when we go over there and get to sit behind that kid. So
Sure.
yeah, that was I think that was the initial pull, of course, towards drums, and him having older Zildjian cymbals was. But again, I would say that there wasn't any one thing, because there's always that hunt. There's always that sense for some other texture that you're looking for, and there's so much nuance to cymbals that it's really hard to nail down, one thing. So.
Yeah. You brought some good stuff this year. I haven't seen your stuff yet, but I can't wait.
Yeah,
and
your dad sat by the booth though, so you got to make it too.
Anything like that you've never done before? Like I don't think I've ever seen. No, maybe I have. Have you ever done like Chinas or?
So there's a reverse China. There's a 22-inch reverse China.
I might have seen like
4
one of
rivets.
yours before.
Yeah. I really like reverse Chinas. They're rideable. They breathe more. They don't have like that rigidity. I mean, that's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
I like the tonality of how you can play it. So I have a 22-inch reverse China at the booth. Just experimenting with some different things. They got 2 cymbals at the booth. That the bottoms are lathed, but the tops, what I did, I just tried burnishing the top only, where I would just take the hammer and I would just, with it against my hip, I'd lean into it with the lathe running and burnish the top, and you can kind of see very faint lines.
Oh, okay,
but just to try and what I'm experimenting with there is how I can build tension into the top in a different way.
Do you ever use just like a dowel, like a wood dowel?
No, I haven't tried that.
That's
I don't know
one
if
thing.
that would be hard enough to really compress the bronze, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Matt does that sometimes. It was
Oh, really?
Something that he.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
He showed us early on. He said if you don't want to take weight off, but want to add a little bit of
Really?
tension.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Noah? Does it make a difference? Sure. Yeah. Right. It definitely gets really hot. It gets very, very.
Oh, sure.
Heats up the
Yeah, all
cymbal
that
quite
friction.
a bit. You
Yeah.
got to put like a lot of effort into
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen your lathe. I'd love to. Is there like a video of you? There has to be a video of you lathing on YouTube.
There's
somewhere.
not a clear video of my lathe. I should take some pictures. I'll send them to you, or I'll put something
Awesome,
up. What I've done, just kind of health and safety concerns with the shavings and that.
Yeah.
Because it's in my house. I've built sort of plastic sheeting that goes from the ceiling down to a funnel on the sides and behind where the cymbal is. And I have what's actually a wood dust collection system for like a wood shop, and it pulls down all the shavings and the dust, and it goes into a secondary collection, just a big trash can.
Yeah.
And when that fills up, I bag it and save it up, and eventually I take it into scrap. So
Yeah, you got to be careful.
yeah, but it keeps the shop clean that way. There's less dust.
Right.
The Turkish blanks are very dirty. So obviously you can wash them off, but still it produces.
Do you always use Turkish blanks?
My first maybe 30 cymbals were from a Chinese supplier, but the shipping took a really long time. The blanks were extremely heavy. I had to remove so much material. It just wasn't.
I've had a couple of those. I know.
Yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't really productive. So it was just easier in the communication and the turnaround time and all that with Turkish suppliers. But
Nice.
getting quality materials is also that's one of the biggest challenges because I'll receive materials and there's a lot of stuff that I won't use that I'll reject. That there will be too many issues with it, but
Sure.
and that's just I think that's going to continue to be a struggle. To
Right.
get really
Have you ever
good
done
material.
flat rides?
I have, yeah. I've got
Nice,
there's a
nice.
lot of flat rides out there.
Did you bring any today?
I did not. I did
Okay.
not. Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always. I like flat rides. They're interesting.
Yeah.
Don't have one right now, so.
Well, I know a guy. I know several guys that
Sure.
might have some at the show right now.
Yeah,
you should
it's
go check out.
in a good
So,
spot for looking for cymbals. So
Yeah.
I mean, do you have anything else you want to talk about, like your method and how you achieve your results?
Yeah. So the way, again, as a self-taught cymbalsmith, I kind of think of it as building it in layers when I'm making a cymbal. Which, if I was going to compare it to something, is like an analogy. My Irish grandmother grew up in an all-Italian neighborhood in 1930s Chicago. So we grew up with a different food culture, thankfully, than whatever we would have gotten, I guess, from Ireland. But she'd make sauce, and she'd sear pork neck bones, and then she'd add the tomatoes, and then she'd add the crushed garlic, and she'd tear up basil by hand, and then later she'd add other stuff, and there'd be red wine, there'd be some Parmesan, and it would happen over a course of time, and that would just simmer all day.
Nice.
And it was just the most beautiful, complex, flavor. And I haven't had a good pasta sauce since she passed away. I mean, that's the God's honest truth. And so I'd compare my cymbal making in a similar way, that I build in layers. I go from heavier, flatter hammers to more pointed because of the different compression. Same thing with lathing, same thing with using heat, same thing with using burnishing, compression, that kind of thing, where I'm thinking of building it in layers. I'm letting it rest. I'm letting it kind of do its thing, because as cymbalsmiths will tell you, the cymbal fresh off the lathe versus the next day versus weeks and even months later will sound totally different.
Yeah, they change.
Yeah, they do change. And sometimes I know if I'm sending something to someone who's especially, going to be discerning about the cymbal, I'll wait a month and just keep it. And I'll come back, maybe once a week and kind of listen to it to make sure I'm comfortable before I ship it out to them.
Do people ask you for like custom orders that are like from maybe I want the sound of this cymbal from this record? Does that happen a lot for you?
I know some guys try and market that kind of an aspect.
Sure.
But
Eric was
cymbals-
talking about that, yeah, earlier.
Okay,
He
yeah,
brought that
I mean,
up. How
the-
it's a cool aspect of having so many custom cymbal makers that
Yeah. The truth is that cymbals sound so different from the player's perspective to a few feet out in the room to the other side of the room to how they're mic'd, if they're in
Sure.
a studio. I mean, it's really difficult. So I'll ask more questions. If someone asks that, I ask more questions, and I kind of try and guide them through what they really want versus what they
Yeah,
what
like
they
what
think
you
they're
think
describing.
because
they
then there's
want.
like the microphone that was used, and there's the room it was in. Yeah, there's all
Yeah,
those
which
different
I don't.
variables.
I'm not an expert on those things, but you just want to get as many questions answered and not
Sure.
rush the process and make sure that it's really what they're looking for. But if I could, there's a couple of QR codes behind me. You can only focus your camera on one at a time, but one, if you're really interested, on the left is for my mail list. I don't send out a lot of mail, but if you're just interested in new things, and then it went away. And if we can get that
It'll-
back,
Yeah,
is it
comes
rotate?
back. We've got like 10 minutes, so you can.
Okay.
What's the other one?
And then the other one is my free app for iOS. Totally free. There's no pop-ups. There's no download this game for $3 a month or anything like that. It's just a totally free app. It's the cymbal weight calculator, so it categorizes cymbal weights and what weight range they would fall in. So you can enter the size, and the weight in grams. There's the cymbal bow slider and bell selector, and it's just a fun educational tool.
Sure.
Ironically, I feel like people put too much into cymbal weight because there's so much else going on in how it's manufactured. So I wouldn't want to mislead you into thinking that that's the most important thing, but so many people ask about it and so many people have an interest in it.
I want 1905 grams, exactly.
Yeah.
1905 grams.
Yeah, and then there's like, I feel like a little burr on the edge and I've got to lathe it off and now it's, 1902. I got to start over.
Start over, yeah.
So that's a free app. And
Some people, they think the gram weight thing is just completely silly. Other people are totally obsessed with it. As a shop guy,
Yeah.
I can tell you that we use it for inventory. That's actually the reason we have to use it. That's because it's how you keep track of the cymbals. So
That's smart. Yeah.
yeah, it's like,
And so I've started, since I have a laser engraver, underneath near the bell, I've started engraving, the stamp, my signature, and the series, and the size and weight.
Nice.
Is just another way to identify symbols the same way.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because it's a question people have, so instead of writing it in Sharpie or whatever, I was like, I'll just
Sure.
engrave it on there.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell me something maybe that we can expect from you, like some great thing in the future, maybe next couple of months. Like, what are you working on? What's an innovation that you're?
That's
that
like
you're
a lot
trying
of
to-
pressure.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. You're on the hot seat here. Yeah.
That's right. Man, wow. Wow. Gee, make mom proud.
I ask the hard questions.
I really, as a craftsman kind of business, the struggle is between, it's not the honest truth is it's not a full-time job. It's a passion business. And what I want to put into it, I'd like to start steering the business in a way where I'm actually going to start making less. Because I want to start focusing more on individual cymbals, take more time with them, which I already do, but I just want to do that more so.
Sure.
And have a greater focus. Also, I got really into series, to be honest, because of marketing purposes, to help the players, customers understand, this is a vintage series, this is a heritage series, this is whatever. But I would like to just get to a point where I'm giving myself more freedom, to just try different things without having to roll it out and name it and market it with, some kind of a name. It's just like, this is a cymbal. If you like it, here it is.
Sure.
That kind of a thing. So.
Yeah, can you tell me a little more about the hammers that you used? I'm always curious because there's some guys that almost everyone has a modified hammer that they made themselves that they really like. Some people even use a small hatchet type deal.
Yeah.
What do you use? I
use a
don't
Turkish
even know.
hammer.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
nice. You've got
yeah. Someone sent me just the hammerhead from Turkey,
okay,
and so put it on a hammer handle and
and they're kind of long and front weighted, right?
yeah, it's all towards the front.
Yeah.
And I did when I lived out here and I lived in the country. I had a close friend who was a blacksmith,
Okay.
a professional blacksmith, and I had him make me a couple hammers that they didn't really do what I wanted them to do. But of course, you can change the shape of the hammer, the face of the hammer, modify it, buff it out. Start over again. But using different weights in that of hammers. But my primary hammer is really just a Turkish cymbal hammer.
Yeah, I need to get one of those.
Yeah.
It seems like it gives you really good leverage, so you can get a really good hit every time without destroying your your wrist.
You just call up one of your guys. You know what? I bet you Leon would send you one.
Actually, he offered. He never did, but
Yeah,
he
just
offered.
follow up with him.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, do you know who I am? I'm Steve Maxwell. I need a hammer.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah, he's a good
We've
guy.
been selling a couple of their cymbals. They're a lot of really thin, kind of washy cymbals, but it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Not ultra complex, but you don't always want that. Yeah, your stuff, I would say, I use different adjectives to describe cymbals, but I really like the one complexity.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that means some people would call it even like trashiness. There's some of that, but for
I'm a
me,
trashy
complexity. Sure, yeah.
As you
Sometimes
can see.
I can be as well. But yeah, the being able to get different tones out of the cymbal, that's really important to me.
Yeah.
But what about for you? Like when you're playing a cymbal, what's something that you really are always looking for when you're just trying something out. And
Yeah, I think a good balance between stick and wash is really important.
sure.
You know, I'm really hard on myself with my own cymbals. It's one of those things where I don't even know if I like my own cymbals.
Sure.
You know, I play them, and I listen to them, and I set them to rest, and I come back to them like, I just don't know. You know, it's really hard.
But then someone else might really like that one. Yeah, it's
Well, that's the funny thing is I went around to the other cymbal smith booths, and there wasn't a cymbal I didn't not like. You know, I thought they were all great. You know,
Sure.
I thought they were all interesting for each cymbal what they were. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult though to nail down in my own work what I like. But yeah, if I was going to say, I don't want it to be so trashy. I don't want to have so much spread that it's uncontrollable. But
Right.
also, you know, as a small craftsman-driven business, if I'm not making something distinctive, if I'm not offering, you know, that its own flavor, you know, it doesn't really help anything. It doesn't really add anything to the conversation
Yeah,
if I'm
yeah.
not providing something that's distinctive.
right on.
So-
and that's the great thing about having so many different, people making cymbals right now. There's like variety. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's frustrating when you get like 20 cymbals from a company and every single one sounds exactly the same sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the great privilege of having Chris Lamb over to my shop when it was out here, and he talked about that in regards to, you know, a bigger cymbal company had sent him cymbals to make, you know, orchestral hand cymbals, and he said he couldn't make a pair out of them because they were all too
Identical.
close. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all identical, and he really wanted, you know, two different ones that were different. And
Right.
So
Yeah, people
I mean,
will come to my shop and they'll mix. I know that whole thing.
yeah, they want to mix it up.
So we've got about 5 minutes left. If anybody has questions, there's a wireless mic, and we could probably pass it around.
Does the process of playing a cymbal for many years, like 30, 35 years, does
Yeah.
that change the quality of the cymbal, the actual playing of it over and over
sure.
again?
Yeah.
In what way does it typically change it? It just depends on the cymbal, I guess, huh? The weight of it and where
Yeah,
you strike it and all that.
Yeah, I mean, there is a way in which cymbals are they're all kind of wearing out in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
they open up, and eventually, I think, like many things, they'll come to the point where obviously they break or something like that. You know, again, when I had that interaction with Chris Lamb, which was really educational for me, he said after a run of a concert series that he'll put cymbals away for years. I mean, of course, he has a collection of hundreds of cymbals at the New York Philharmonic, but he won't use the same set of cymbals for many years because he wants to let them rest. I mean, he's a very certain specific kind of player. He's hearing things that I don't, that I'm not really in tune to. But yeah, I mean, just the act of being played or not being played. Obviously, a new cymbal you want it to open up, so it needs to be played. It's meant to be played. But of course, it's going to change things. I don't know if I already kind of gave this analogy, but like a pre-war Martin guitar. Did I say something about that already?
Yeah.
And it sort of peaks, and then it gets to the point where it's played out. So I think there's probably some element of that.
Can you clarify all the myths about cleaning your cymbals? Can you clarify all the myths about cleaning your cymbals?
In what way? Like
Well, whether
patina?
it changes them, or this product is bad to use, that product is better, or do you just not clean them? Period.
A lot of different thoughts on this, I think.
That's a controversial subject. Let me tell you. I think there's a lot of opinions on that. You know what? There's probably, to be honest, there's probably some smiths that are coming up later that could answer that question better. My preference would just be let it age, to let it patina, let it become part of the history of the cymbal. There's different kinds of patina though. If you have green stuff growing on your cymbal, you probably want to remove that. That'd be my opinion. One of the guys who represents my cymbals, Chris Mead, he'll cut a lemon in half, and he'll go along with the grooves and wipe it off and clean it off, and his cymbals stay looking pretty clean.
Isn't it like bronze disease or something? It's like a
I don't know if that's necessarily bronze disease. I know it's exactly what you're talking about. Like,
something that can really eat away
it actually starts to decompose the bronze.
Yeah.
It eats away at the copper, but the green is, I think it's called verdigris. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
Sure.
But you can force a patina. I'll just tell you what it is with Miracle-Gro and vinegar.
Yeah.
I mean, you can find this online. It's not like there's really any secrets anymore, right? But you mix that up and you soak it, or you have it above the fumes, and you can create that kind of a patina on purpose. So if you wanted that on purpose to kind of control the wash or kind of just create a look, that's fine. But if you just organically have that start growing on a cymbal, I would try and clean that off. That would be the one that I would be against. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we actually have to move on to the next. These are only half an hour each, but tomorrow at 12 o'clock, all the cymbalsmiths are going to be meeting in the main building upstairs. So if you want to come like chat with everybody, that's a great time to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for coming, man.
Awesome. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
We got Dave coming up next.
Thanks for coming to listen.
So yeah, this Dave Collingwood. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
Yeah, you too. Hi.
And yeah, how was your flight over?
Yeah, good. I've been here about a week, and
Oh, nice.
I came into New York, and then I've been in Oklahoma doing some training, some cymbalsmith training.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I got in last night at about 2 o'clock. Thanks to Ryan for picking me up.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your background and you know how you got into cymbals and just your story.
So I was a professional drummer for quite a long time. I was touring the world and elsewhere.
Yeah, I read about.
Yeah, and but then had a family, and so stopped.
What
all
kind of
that
music?
stuff. Kind of like indie rock, experimental.
Okay,
kind
nice.
Kind of stuff. People assume I must be a jazz drummer because I'm a cymbal maker, but
Sure.
I don't really know anything about jazz. So if people want to leave now, that's cool.
No.
Yeah, and I retrained and did like a proper job and tried growing up, and that didn't go too well. But I'd heard about, I don't know if people are familiar with the Cymbalholic forum that was,
Sure.
It's kind of defunct now, but I'd heard about like Spears and Matt Bettis and people making cymbals, and it appealed to me. So I had the idea to try it, and once I get an idea, I can't not do it. And I started tinkering and building my workshop and teaching myself, and here I am.
Right on. Where are you from in the UK?
Bristol.
Bristol. All right.
Yeah, Southwest.
Great. And just tell me a little bit about like your process and your cymbals, because I don't think I've played any of your cymbals. You've got a booth, right?
No.
Oh, you don't have a booth today. Did you bring some?
Nope.
Oh, you don't even have any cymbals, right?
No, there is one of my cymbals here. Timothy Roberts has
Okay.
one that I made for his birthday a couple of years ago.
I'll make sure to check it out.
Yeah, so he's got one. So.
Is it like out in the main hall?
No, he's
or?
hiding it away in a bag. So you have to kind of speak in tongues to him, and he'll go, "Okay."
Make sure to bring me over to him later, and
Yeah,
because
sure.
I gotta check out your stuff.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about your process and.
Well, I mean, my process is always changing, I guess, because I'm completely self-taught, start to finish.
Sure.
So the way I started was I wanted to always start on blanks. It was always B20, the good cymbal bronze. So I just found a supplier and made a hammer I thought would work and an anvil I thought would work, and just started making lots and lots of mistakes and throwing my money away, essentially. But through that, I learned how to remove the mistakes and find the paths that worked. And so my process is kind of still that. I can comfortably make cymbals, but when something that was said by Ray as well, I think is like, he wants to kind of spend longer over certain cymbals, and I get that. For me, I kind of want to spend longer screwing myself up. And like, once you understand the process, the next time you do it, you can do it a bit quicker.
Sure.
But to me, I want to unpick the craft a bit more, so I'll start putting in things I don't understand, so I can.
So did you start with blanks? You didn't start modifying like old
started
cymbals?
with blanks.
Interesting. Did you get them from Turkey or?
Yep.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
You started with kind of the original formula, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, this was about 10 years ago, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. And then nice. So yeah, when you were talking about your hammers, what did you create for yourself? I do a little bit of hammering. I just took like a ball peen, and I basically just with a grinder, removed half of it, so then it was more front weighted. What did you do?
Yeah, kind of similar, I guess. Went to a hardware store, got a ball peen, cut the ball off the back, and faced the main face a little smoother, and figured it out from there. But then, again, like Ray was saying, you can go to a Turkish supplier and say, can I have a hammer? And they'll send you one.
Yeah.
Usually, like he said, it comes as a head and the handle, and then you've got that challenge, but that's
Sure.
easy enough. But I don't know if people are aware of a guy called Nicholas Downing. I interviewed him. I run a Patreon for cymbal smithing, and I interviewed him for that. He's, thanks to Mike Mongiello, there was kind of this connection. Yeah, hi. And Mike, I think, saw Nick Downing making hammers for other uses, metalwork, and went, that's a bit like the Turkish hammers we use, so reached out.
Sure.
And so he and Nick started working together, and now Nick, you can go to Nick and say, I'd like this kind of cymbal hammer, and he's got a few kind of off-the-shelf options.
Nice.
I don't have any, but I've just been using some in Oklahoma. The guy I've been training has some, and they're great.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Describe what were you working on out there? Give me some knowledge.
Well, this is a guy who he doesn't necessarily want to be a cymbal smith in a career kind of way, but needs a hobby. The sort of guy that just picks something up and throw thousands of dollars at it and hope it works. So he bought a load of blanks and built himself a lathe and an anvil based on just what he'd seen on videos and what us guys post.
Nice.
And then because he's part of my Patreon, I do like video lessons, and we were talking about it, and I said, I'll be in the US, and he said, cool, come to Oklahoma. So.
Oh, it's fantastic. You had a good time?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
You guys just pumping out cymbals?
Yeah, sitting in the middle of the Great Plains, really, just working on blanks. But he'd never touched. He hadn't even opened the boxes by the time I got there.
So you were kind of training him. It sounds like, Nice.
Oh yeah. I was going. This is the hammer, and that's the cymbal, and you connect the two.
Right. And then what about like anvil-wise? What kind of anvil do you use?
I have got a bit of steel that's about 6-inch diameter and 4-inch depth.
Okay.
And I rounded it a bit. My approach to cymbal making and life in general is just try it and see if it works. And that's why I've got a lot of problems. But
I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage because I've probably played your cymbals before. I just I see thousands of cymbals. So,
sure.
But yeah, do you do? I know Ray does bell hammering. Do you do bell hammering or do you stick? Because you don't always do bell hammering.
I pretty much, I guess, 95% of my cymbals are hand-formed bells.
Oh, see, that's a whole nother
is that what you
thing
mean?
to talk about.
Or you mean hammering pressed bells?
I even meant hammering press bells, but that's actually probably we should talk about that then.
Sure.
If you're forming the bell, so do you get flat blanks without a hole in the middle? Oh, yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, just start from scratch.
Can you describe a little bit?
Well, I
about
like the idea of knowing I've made the entire thing.
Sure.
And I'm not saying either way's better or worse, but
right.
I like the complexity, to use that word, that comes from a hand-formed bell, and you've got control over the diameter and the transition to the main body and the shape. And
I like cymbals that are like slightly asymmetrical, and that's what I like about hand-formed. And the old Ks, they were made with sledgehammers.
Yeah.
They would pound it in with like probably a wood anvil under there, I imagine. So that's very cool. What do you use to form the bell? How do you do that? Do you use a wood anvil on the bottom, or?
No, because it's the same anvil, pretty much the same hammer, because you're still compressing the metal and stretching it. So it has to suddenly have a vertical element to it. So just slam down into that thing and build the shape you want.
That's very cool.
I try and keep things as simple as possible. I try and remove as much as I can. I want to keep learning, but also with what I learn, I want to then strip away what I don't need. And in a way, I'm taking away everything until the cymbal is kind of the opposite of the blank, in a way.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
There's a cymbal inside of there.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, we were talking about gram weights, we don't have to talk about real specific, but are you generally, would you say you're known for like really light, medium, or more on the heavy side cymbals?
I don't know. You'd have to ask people that know me.
Sure.
Because maybe a bit thinner.
Back in the 90s and 2000s, everyone played heavy cymbals pretty much.
Yeah.
But nowadays, rock guys and like, everybody likes lighter cymbals. It's like the new cool thing. So
Yeah, I think it oscillates though, like everything. It
Sure.
sort of comes and goes. But I mean, I'm a rock drummer at heart, and,
Sure.
but what I found was with all these thicker cymbals, they didn't quite have the kind of dynamics and breadth I was looking for. So if I had a mission statement, it's to make cymbals that can be, you can pound the heck out of them.
Okay,
in
yeah.
a musical setting.
Sure.
But they'll still breathe and be dynamic. So I suppose, to answer your question, thinner, but part of that is driven by the fact that thinner blanks are cheaper.
Right. So you like something that's like crashable, a little
Yeah,
washy.
but in a controlled kind of way. And then
Sure.
thin blanks, the other Smiths will attest to this, like thin blanks are really hard to work on. The thinner they are, you can understand it, but the thinner they are, the more kind of hard they can be to control. Whereas if you've got a big thick lump of metal, it's quite easy to get a basic cymbal shape, and then you decide where you go from there. So
Right.
it's a bit of a challenge.
When you're forming the bells, do you run into issues with the metal ever cracking because
I used to, but I've just found a good way of doing it.
Like
that's
practice,
quite
yeah.
economical. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, right.
I
mean,
imagine-
the main thing really for me, and everyone does it differently, is just not to drill the mounting hole until you're ready. Until
Right,
you know
right.
the bell's where you want it.
Yeah.
You can still adjust a bit after that, but hammering on a bell where you've got a mounting hole, you suddenly, the material you're not hammering is trying to remain where it was.
Right,
and
right.
There's so much pressure trying to split it apart.
I do like modifications on cymbals. Most of the time I'll just lathe cymbals. If someone has a cymbal they really don't like and they just want to take off maybe 200 grams, I'll do
Yeah.
something like that. But sometimes I'll do hammering too, and it's very difficult to not damage the cymbal. You have to be very careful if there's
Definitely.
a hole there.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
weakness.
Especially if you've got like deep lathing, really sharp lathing, and
Yeah.
with all that stress building up.
Right,
you
and it's
hammer
an
that
old
and it
cymbal
just-
too.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly. The metal's changed.
Yeah, over time they become, I guess, like more brittle. I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
A little bit.
I mean, to expand on what you were talking about with Ray, I think like the metal is always trying to separate, and in millions of years, all the cymbals will just be atoms floating through the universe.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything has a kind of decay in that way
Sure. Over time.
over time, not whatever that counts for.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the way I look at the whole process is not trying to be too kind of precious or zoomed in on anything, and keep it kind of organic and,
Right
I
on.
don't know, moving somehow, living.
Right. So how about like, do you have any advice for everybody, like when it comes to like searching for a cymbal that like works for you?
I think what I see when I have people come to my workshop is the first hit. Usually, I look at the eyes of the customer while they're sat to the kit, and if the eyes kind of go up when they do that first hit and go,
Sure.
they're usually coming back to that
Yeah,
cymbal.
everyone has that face when they're like, ooh.
Yeah. But if they go,
Sure.
they might still play it and go maybe, but chances are if you don't get something, and it's not that you know what that is straight away, it's just there's
Right.
potential, you can see it in the face.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
mean, having the drum shop.
Yeah, right.
You probably haven't been to our shop before. You should definitely,
I'd love to,
come on
yeah.
down if you
Yeah,
have
I'd love
time.
to,
How long are you in the area for?
I'm in Chicago until Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
I've got Mondays, so.
We're going to be there Monday. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll see if I can drop by. I was thinking of
Yeah.
going to Woodstock to see where Groundhog Day was filmed. But,
Oh, cool.
Priorities.
Nice. Sure. Well, hey, you're invited. I'll give you the
Thanks.
grand tour. We're going to be there Monday. Tomorrow, I don't think there's going to be anyone there, but today there is, and then Monday we'll be there.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, we've definitely got some cool stuff. So.
Great.
I can show you my lathe and hammer and all
That would be great,
all
yeah.
that fun stuff.
Yeah, I'd enjoy that.
But yeah, so let's see. Maybe moving on a little bit. We were talking about like the music you used to play. What about like maybe focus on like hi-hats? Do you do a lot of hi-hats or do you do mostly rides? What's your
Mostly rides.
speciality?
Hi-hats are interesting because there's nowhere to hide with hi-hats.
Sure.
If you build hi-hat cymbals that are maybe a little loose, or you compress them when you close them with your foot and they kind of bounce, it's going to show up straight away. Whereas if you've got like a ride or a crash that's got loose hollow spots, that can actually be quite a nice thing.
Sure.
But I enjoy doing hi-hats, partly because they help, you go, oh, I do know what I'm doing. Are you okay there?
Yeah, I knew this was going to happen.
Oh, yeah, you're losing your mic.
Keep going, though.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
I can fix it.
Yeah, I'm thinking of doing more hi-hats because I feel like I finally figured them out.
Right.
They took a bit of chasing.
Yeah. At the shop, it's like screwed into the table. But these are the clamp-on ones.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, awesome. So then, like, I guess I can move on to what new stuff you're working on that you really actually, you know what? No, let's keep talking about hi-hats.
Okay.
When you're making some hi-hats, do you have like a specific way to try and avoid like the air, like the air pocket syndrome? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Get like a good chick without.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, the tricks we're all aware of, which is the little adjustment if you've got that on your hi-hat stand to tilt the felt.
Sure.
Or,
yeah.
There's something to be said for having cymbals that aren't perfectly flat. There's this whole quest for perfection, and it's great to understand how to make a perfectly flat cymbal that's consistent, but at the same time, you don't want to rob the things of character. So having hi-hats that maybe don't perfectly match up can help with some kind of character,
Yeah,
But
asymmetry is.
yeah, it's really, there's a load of cool stuff there, but then of course you're inviting the perfection crowd, but you can't please everyone, can you?
Is your stuff more like kind of traditional in the way you do it, or more like avant-garde? Because some cymbal makers, they do stuff which is like really like kind of cutting edge, and then some guys are more like trying to capture the same sound of like from like a specific era. What would you say your focus is?
Well, I suppose my methods are traditional, I guess, even though they're self-taught. But
yeah,
I'm not
especially with the bell forming.
Yeah, but I'm not trying to capture anything other than once I've finished, and that's in a whole other discussion. When are they ever finished? But once they're finished and I hit them, if I go, okay, I think that's pretty cool, then off they go. So
sure.
Yeah, I'm not chasing anything other than being pleased with it when it's done. But I'm making stuff for other people. Once it leaves my workshop, it's nothing to do with me. In a way,
Sure.
It's like, and I said this before, but it's a bit pretentious, but I'm making half of a relationship for somebody else to get to know. And it's that whole first hit of like, ping, maybe there's a relationship here, but that's not my business.
Sure.
That's theirs.
So then, when you were playing out, what cymbals did you use?
What did I have? The last big tour I did, I had some Istanbul darks, some traditional darks.
Yeah.
And I cracked the heck out of them.
Oh, yeah?
I was just like a sort of angry, thrashy player, and
hey, sure.
I like the sound of them when I hit them soft and then just smash them really hard. So,
yeah, I mean, playing the big venues,
Yeah, I mean,
the
last big tour was like 9 weeks through the US, South America, back and forth to Europe, and
nice.
Yeah, but anyone who's done any kind of touring, really, a few weeks in and you're just tired, your liver's screaming at you to stop, and
sure.
You're just like, heck, let's just get through this,
Like, do you have a musical family? How'd you get into music originally?
I think in a way from not having a musical family.
Okay.
It's a long story. My mum kind of introduced me to the Beatles.
Nice.
and stuff when I was young, and lots of comedy like Monty Python, and I think there was a lot of creativity.
I love that stuff.
Yeah,
Sure.
A lot of creativity going on.
British comedy, I love British comedy.
Yeah, cool.
That and stuff that many people here probably never heard of. Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Oh, well, we'll talk more about that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, in a way, I had quite a sort of quiet, absent family without going too far into that, and so it was almost, I saw Kurt Cobain being really angry and expressive, and being someone who needed an outlet.
So the grunge scene was something that really appealed to you?
Yeah, Dave Grohl and Matt Cameron and these kind of guys. But it was also quite sort of technical in the sense, it wasn't just chopsy for the heck of it, but, interesting phrasing and rocking out, and then pin drop quiet and dynamics.
Cool thing about that era of music is the drum sets started to get a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
They went from like 12-piece to 4-piece again.
But doing quite a lot on it.
Right.
Being quite creative. Or in the case of like Dave Grohl, just being solid,
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Grab the mic, if you
How
would.
old am I? 44.
Yeah, simple one. How old? Yeah. So yeah, we're at that point. Got about 10 minutes here. So if anybody wants to ask questions, that one was easy. Anyone else
Yeah,
got?
I know that one. I know the answer to that one.
Sure. Anyone else got some questions?
Yes, I'd like to. Thanks.
Training.
Training.
Question about his training.
Training, yeah. So I train cymbal smiths essentially, and I see a few in the room here. Because I'm self-taught, I kind of had the idea to start offering training, and it started out as maybe just make a small little chime thing with some basic hammering methods, and then you can go away from my workshop and great, play a cymbal you've made, and that kind of expanded.
Sure.
To folk who want to actually learn the craft. And I struggled a bit with the idea of, do I give away secrets? And, there's this whole kind of dark art angle about cymbal making.
Yeah, right on.
I kind of don't subscribe to
You run into that a lot, yeah.
Yeah, in a way, I don't want to tread on toes or diminish it, but
Right.
the more people do it, 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been happening, And I'm not taking any credit for that. I'm just saying there's a lot of visibility of the
I
craft.
think every one of you guys has added,
Oh, completely. Yeah, and we're all posting on Instagram, and we're all helping each other. I've met faces I've been seeing through Zoom and stuff for like 2 years, and suddenly I'm in a room with 13 of these guys. It's
So do you
awesome.
train people like over the internet? You do like
Generally, yeah. So the Patreon is like kind of video lessons.
That's a
and-
really cool angle. I like that. Yeah, very
Yeah,
nice.
It works,
Yeah.
and it's everything from if folk don't even know how to hold a hammer, I can
Sure.
say that's the bit you hold and that's the bit you strike with. But everything from that up to like pros just saying I'm looking for some new ideas or just to bounce stuff around, and I'll go, well, think of the metal this way, or let's kind of actually look at it from the metal's point of view, and
Yeah.
just all that kind of stuff. And it's
Awesome.
cool. I've got like 47 people on the Patreon, and it's growing, and I've got some ideas for, content and all
Sure,
this
sure.
kind of important stuff.
Very
But
cool.
I'm enjoying training as well, and people seem to be getting a lot from it, and the more the merrier, I think.
Do you have any more stops in the States before you go back?
I'm going back down to Texas on Tuesday to train a guy for a day.
Oh, nice.
And then back up to New York.
Geez,
to-
you're really
Yeah,
making
I
the
know.
rounds.
Yeah, it's one of
You're
those
on tour again.
dartboard tours. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then back to New York for a few days. I might go and visit Mr. Mongiello, close to New York, and possibly Mr. Sagerton, and just see. Or I might just sit in the park and cry. Or something.
Sure. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I love Central Park. Yeah. Do you have like a specific spot you like in Central Park?
Well, I only went there because I flew into New York last weekend. I just went there because it was a nice, the weather's much better than England, and I went to Strawberry Fields. It's the first. I've been to New York a few times, but I've never done the tourist thing.
Oh,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
travel. I like to kind of get lost in a place and unravel it. But I thought I'll go and see Strawberry Fields, and
Nice.
and I listened to the Beatles while I was there, and kind of felt a bit gross, but it was cool.
No, that's cool. Man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good fun.
Like a pilgrimage or something.
Yeah, right.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Any more questions? Anyone got?
Patreon.com, thank you for asking, /Collingwood cymbals. Simple as that, really. Or if you go to Patreon and put cymbals, I think I'll be at kind of one of two results. Yeah, and I offer a free 30-minute Zoom session to see what people want to get from it. Some people sign up, they don't want to make cymbals necessarily, they're just interested, and so there's various tiers they can sign up at.
Nice. Yeah. I bet you I could learn a lot from you. I want to join. Yeah,
Please do.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, do.
If you can't make it out on Monday, then I'll because like I do a little bit, but kind of mostly just lathing. That's kind of really my main thing.
Lathing's huge. I don't think a lot of folk understand how powerful lathing is.
Sure.
They think that hammering's where all the magic is, and there's a lot of magic in it, but lathing is where you can really change things and really have control.
Can you tell me anything about your lathe? What kind of like?
It's direct drive, which
Okay.
I wouldn't recommend to anybody. It's a motor with a gearbox because the motor runs at like 2,800.
Dang.
And so you need it to be around sort of Well, mine's 280, works for me.
Yeah, mine's belt driven.
Yeah, belt driven's the much safer option. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, but when I was starting, like I said, I just built everything myself. I didn't get help or ask for it because I'm an awkward kind of size.
Matt Bettis helped me make mine.
Yeah,
and
I saw that.
We were missing a bunch of pieces.
Yeah.
And so we went to the hardware store and we basically just fashioned it together with just kind of generic things.
Yeah.
And it still works.
That's the way to
after
do it. I mean, my
6
tool
years.
rest is held together with drum clamps just because I had them lying around. 10 years later, I'm still using them.
Is it a high speed? You use a high speed lathe? Mine's pretty slow.
What's yours? Do you know?
Ooh, Paul Francis was there and he said it was one of the slowest ones he's ever seen.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Mine-
like whatever very slow is. I don't know the actual RPM.
Okay,
but
I mean, mine's 280, which I guess is kind of medium-ish, but Paul's lathing at 800 because he's
he's
crazy.
yeah, he said it was very dangerous.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
ridiculous.
fast though. It's fast.
Yeah,
That's what.
Yeah,
You're right.
But,
You're done.
But he's been doing it 30 years or something.
I
so.
guess the ones that
The ones at Zildjian,
Zildjian
he's just
are-
kind of replicating that 'cause it's what he's comfortable on.
mine's probably around. I think mine might even less than yours. But
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Old record player. Yeah, I just pop them on there and. Sometimes I play cymbals on
Play
my
cymbals,
record
yeah,
player.
right, yeah.
It doesn't sound very good though.
But there's a lot to learn without dragging it on too much. That's actually a good point because when you're lathing sometimes you probably get it where you start getting chatter on the lathe.
Oh yeah.
And so you can start thinking, well, actually what I'm doing is kind of cutting a waveform into this thing. And,
Sure.
and then you can start working with pressure and doing
you
that
can-
strategically.
I always try, like, chatter to me is like try to avoid it. And then sometimes I'll get ones that have really bad chatter already.
Yeah.
And someone's like, I want you to lathe it. And then I want you to lathe it more. And I want you to lathe it more. And sanding is one way to get rid of chatter.
Yep.
But that takes forever.
Well, it depends. I mean, again, information only, something I wouldn't recommend. I use like an angle grinder with a flat disc, and while the cymbal's spinning, spin the angle grinder and take it down.
I've never tried that.
Ridiculously dangerous.
Very dangerous, yeah.
but you get through the chatter, or change something. If you start getting chatter building up in the lathe, like the waves that build up in the lathe grooves, change something about your cut and go through it differently, go the opposite way or something and start breaking it apart.
For those who don't know, what he's talking about is when you're lathing, there's this like really high frequency that you can like hear when you start to get the chatter. It's very obvious.
And you see it as well.
Right.
So it's,
And you kind of like feel it in the...
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's a feedback. I mean, all we're doing really is working on a piece of metal that makes a noise, and the application of force or whatever, removal of material makes it make a different noise, and it might start feeding back to you that you're putting maybe pressure in it, and so it's starting to resonate, whatever. You'll get different size chatter at different parts of the cymbal.
Right.
So.
And like the rigid parts tend to be, at least in my experience, the backing cymbal, that if you don't do that, you get more chatter for some reason. I don't know.
See, I never use backing cymbals. I use.
Oh, you don't?
No, I when I'm lathing, I like nothing behind my cymbals. I want it supported, of course, out at the edge, but I like to work with pressure so I can feel where I'm pushing, and then you can kind of strategically alter your pressure as you cut, and that kind of changes all sorts of things.
Is your basic lathe, do you have like a flat plate, or is it, and then so if you're doing the underside, you have something you add on, and then you put that's like mine,
Yeah, just design this kind of plywood base with rings as walls and then rubber kind of top, and the cymbal just sits back in there.
Yeah.
Really, but I've got a kind of theory, and sorry, Patreon members, you'd be bored to death of this, but I think they're like hammering and lathing. In a way, they've got a crossover. They're kind of the same thing, or they kind of do the same thing if you really dive into it. You can use lathing like hammering. Yeah. In a way.
Well, like tension you're talking about?
Yeah, that's a word I have a bit of an issue with sometimes, but we won't go into that. But yeah, because you can. It's like
I'm the same way with adjectives for describing symbols.
Exactly. But,
Some of them bother me.
You can use pressure in certain ways, especially with nothing backing the cymbal. So really, you're kind of moving the cymbal in a way like you're applying one big hammer as the cymbal rotates. So you can alter the shape of the cymbal with lathing.
Definitely, because if you lathe the bottom a whole bunch, you can even lay the cymbal to the point where it kind of becomes
I do that
almost like a blank again. Like
even more, like I did that on purpose yesterday with the student, just to demonstrate. I took one cymbal that we'd made and pressed really hard as I lathed the underneath. and that made it this kind of pointed. You've seen those. I think Istanbul do them. They're just really out of shape.
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
like clapstack kind of shape.
Very asymmetrical.
Yeah, exactly. But then you turn the cymbal over, put it on the lathe, and just burnish the top, and it goes.
Right.
Or cut the top or whatever. So you can control all these things in either real subtle ways or real kind of full-on ways.
Yeah.
It's all that stuff which takes you to a point and gives the cymbal your voice, I think. What I'm finding interesting is going around the booths and like playing Mike's, playing Nicky's, playing whatever, and they've all
Sure.
got different characters, and it's great.
Right on, yeah. Yeah, this is a great show. We're also happy to be here. We're happy you're here too.
Thanks,
Thanks for making the trip.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
The trek, yeah. It's
Yeah, really pleased to be here.
over the pond.
Where do I send the bill?
Sure. Hey, I'll give you some free stuff if you come to the shop.
I'll be there.
Awesome, man.
Saying the right words.
Cool. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming and thanks for
Thank
listening,
you.
everybody. I'd love to hang more. We will. We'll hang more.
Yeah,
later.
we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thanks very much.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. So Burke Daugherty here today to talk with me again. More cymbal talk. Yep.
How's that? Getting better. All right.
I told our sound guy that I always talk really loud, so I almost don't even need a microphone. But whenever I do podcasts, it's usually the other guy's gain is turned up really high. And then, yeah, it's funny. It's also true for our videos that we do at the shop. But anyways, so yeah, great to meet you.
Great to be here.
Yeah,
Great to be
so
here.
let's start out just a little bit about you. Where are you from?
Right now I'm living in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Charlottesville,
I've lived
nice.
all over Virginia, so I'm pretty much a Virginia guy.
Great. Did
East
you
Coast.
drive out or did you take
We
plane?
drove out.
Nice. How was it?
Yeah, long drive.
Yeah, a bit of a haul.
Yeah, 13 hours approximately.
Sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, enough.
I've driven around there. It's kind of a beautiful drive though.
It is.
There are
It was
parts,
very nice,
yeah.
especially coming through the mountains. It's
Yeah.
really pretty. West Virginia.
Very, very
Yeah,
nice.
it's kind of cutting across the grain of the mountains that makes it a
Sure.
scary trip.
Right on. So yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like how'd you get into cymbal making? A little bit about your past.
All right. Well, started with playing in bands as a bassist.
Okay.
And then went to college initially as a performance degree. Switched over to arts management after my freshman year. Graduated from there, and then went right into woodworking, which was kind of always my particular bent. I consider myself more craftsman than musician.
Okay.
So I started off making acoustic guitars and electric basses,
Oh,
with
wow.
focus on electric basses. And then got a mortgage, so I had to go to kitchen cabinets, doors, and windows, pay the bills,
Sure.
to meet the demands of the
Yeah.
debt. And then always, played on the side and kept the instrument making going along. And then switched over into drums due to the fact I live in a small town. There's maybe about 15 of us that played jazz and
So you're a jazz bass player.
jazz bass player, jazz and fusion,
Oh,
this kind
nice.
of thing.
There's never enough jazz bass players. Everyone always needs a bass player.
Well, here's what happened. In this tiny town, 2 upright players moved in.
Oh, geez.
So as an electric bassist, those gigs started to whittle down a little bit, and we were all fighting for the same drummer.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I know the songs. I'm a rhythm section guy. Traded a bass for an old set of drums.
Nice.
And just, the basics, timekeeping, and then I was able to start gigging.
Sure,
Because
sure.
I wasn't a flash drummer, sax players love that. So it was always kind of out of the way and just timekeeping. And then that led to making my own drum set and then Cymbalholics. is
So
where the pig
woodworking
came
you started with.
from. Yes.
Awesome. How did you make drums?
A stave production set.
Okay.
So faceting solid wood, because that's the easiest way to go about it.
And you would lathe as like the last step probably?
Yes, a homemade jig that you'd spin the barrel on and run your router across as the drum rotated.
Sure.
And stuff it inside.
Yeah,
and same
I've
thing.
played on many good sounding.
Yeah, it's a
stave
great way
kit.
to make a kit on the cheap.
Sure.
If you have a router and a couple bits and $40 of bearings, you can jig yourself
Right.
up, and one jig will make all your drum sizes.
You don't have to
So,
worry about steam bending or
None of that.
or
No,
like
just
there is glue, but it's a little bit of a
wait for the glue to dry.
sure. Yeah, man.
But,
right on. So So yeah, tell me how you like. I mean, what kind of cymbals did you go with when you first started playing drums?
Whatever I had.
Sure.
And actually, the lack of access to decent equipment was what led me, part of the reason that got me into cymbal making.
Okay.
There was no decent drum store around. Used cymbals were pretty much what you had access to. This
Sure.
is 2006. And then Cymbalholics, that website was what really turned things, because that's
Sure,
where
yeah.
reading about what these guys were doing, knowing the type of cymbal that I wanted, not having I couldn't rationalize buying an old K at that point. And after reading about how these cymbals were made, I was like, well, I have chunks of steel, I have a hammer, I can make a lathe, and just started with stainless steel and learning how to form and tension, and then just one thing leads to another, as it always does.
So you did some stainless steel cymbals. That's cool, because it's a little softer than regular steel, so it would actually probably...
I find it's much slower moving,
Yeah.
so it gives you time to kind of see, to make, you have enough headroom to keep pounding away and
Sure.
see the results without kind of getting into a crash and burn situation
Sure,
as
sure.
you can with bronze if you're going at it too aggressively.
Right.
And then forming the bell, because it's not a pressed thing. So that gives you some insight into the effect that the bell has on things.
So you would
and
start
hammer.
with just like a sheet?
Just a sheet.
And then make
flat.
circle and then
snip
probably...
it out, and drill it, just
Cool.
hammer away and trial and error. I still have a few examples of those laying around.
I'd be really interested to see how those sound. Did you bring cymbals today? Do you have a booth?
I do. Booth
Nice.
84.
I'll definitely, I haven't had any time to go check out any booths because
Yeah,
I've been
please
running
come out,
around.
please come out.
I had to set up our booth, and then I had to set up these things.
There's a lot going on over there,
Yeah, the drum show is always really, the time moves so quickly. You
Yeah.
have to be,
2 days is barely enough.
it's
right?
hard to focus on anything. Yeah, absolutely. There was one that was 3 days. That was actually kind of cool. I actually kind of enjoyed
Those
that.
are tough. When
Yeah.
you're in a booth for 3 days.
Was exhausted at the end.
NAMM or PASIC, which
Yeah.
is 3 times louder.
Right?
Because the demographic is different.
Oh, yeah.
And, I attend those shows for Koide Cymbals, which is a Japanese company that I rep for.
Okay.
And that gives me access to doing those shows that I probably wouldn't be able to do on my own with my own brand.
Sure, sure. Do you, and then you bring your cymbals?
Yes,
Nice.
I would bring a
I've
few with me, and through
Yeah.
internet and correspondence, I would arrange to meet people, bring some things, and it just gives you exposure that was
Yeah.
not available.
I haven't been to NAMM in quite a while, but I've been a couple times, and yeah, it's very loud.
It's still very NAMM.
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't changed.
Even with a couple less people, yeah.
Yeah, it's still baloney.
So, yeah, that explains a little bit about how you got into it originally. Tell me a little bit about your process. Are you starting with like Turkish blanks or?
Both Turkish and Japanese blanks through
Oh,
Koide.
interesting.
And Koide's blanks are very interesting, the way that they're produced. They're produced at a foundry that just does copper alloys. They made the windings and the copper bits for the Hadron Collider. It's almost a laboratory more than like a smutty sort of dirty foundry situation.
Sure.
The parameters are really dialed in. They make a cylinder that's about 6 inches in diameter and about 5 feet long.
Okay.
And the molten bronze is agitated as it's poured, and then it's cooled as it's poured, so nothing can settle out. So you're guaranteed to have the same ratio of your metal from top to bottom. Then it's sliced and then carries on with the same process of press rolling and bell stamping and annealing and all of that.
Wow.
So that's their angle on the cymbal making. Koide has some.
Yeah, I'm not sure if
patents
I
on
know
their
anyone
stuff.
else who uses those.
It's very new. I mean, we've been here in the States. We started about 4 years ago, and just recently have begun to get some traction with retailers and through doing the larger shows. So it's a long process.
Sure.
I mean, Toshio Koide was really concerned about meeting demand for the U.S. market because it's just a Japanese company selling just on the island. We were assured him that it was going to be a slow, long process to get recognized, and it has been. And we're doing it without any real budget, so to speak of. So we're just,
Sure.
just hammering away at it, literally. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
Hammering
puns,
away.
yeah, puns,
So yeah, can you describe a little bit about your process? Do you form the bells, or do you get them already?
Both.
Okay, you do. a
But
little
right
both.
now, I'd probably say that 20% of what I do is hand-formed bell.
Okay.
And I just use, I typically will go with a lower profile bell and then modify that, raise that some so that I can maintain some thickness in the bell without it thinning if I want a higher bell.
Sure.
So, everything else that I'm doing is pretty much typical to what everybody else is doing. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel with my method. It's the same. It's a constant study of, cause and effect. Recently, I really focus on repetition now. So like most of the cymbals I have in my booth are of a similar variety because for the last 6 months, I've been working for a cleaner sound, flatter faced hammers, a lower profile.
Sure.
And they're a little glassier
Right.
than what I've made.
Are your
in the past.
hammers like custom made, or do you use the Turkish style, or
A little of both.
A little of both? Nice.
There's I'm blanking on his name, but it's Nicholas, somebody could help me with their name. Downing, thank you, makes wonderful tools. So I've had him make several hammers for me. And then, of course, the ones that I've just modified,
Sure.
as you find them.
Very cool. Yeah. Have you been to Maxwell Drums? Have you been to our shop?
In New York.
In New York, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
years
Well, yeah,
back.
if you have time, make sure to drop by.
I hope to.
I'll show you my self-made hammers. They're pretty good, but
That's the nice thing about this craft is that a lot of your tooling you can make yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
My lathe is an old automobile brake drum lathe that was modified to do cymbal lathing.
Oh, nice. That sounds like pretty hefty piece
It's a
of
hefty
equipment.
machine, I used the original machine because it's all, of course, very heavy. But I could take the spindle off as massive bearings and shaft, so if I could put it on a different frame and a different motor. But this one's working, so I've just stuck with it.
Sure.
It's fixed speed. It's around 200 RPMs, which is a little on the slow side, but it's feasible.
Right.
For making things.
Yeah, I was walking around, and I think I did see a couple years. Yeah, it seems like you've got traditional, like reminded me, at least I didn't play it, but it looks a little bit like an old K. So yeah,
hint of that, yeah.
What are some cymbals that you really speak to you? Are you kind of going for that traditional sound?
It changes.
Sure.
And that's, I have the luxury of, I'm not doing cymbal making as my full-time source of income. So I can take my time with it. Sometimes I have to put it down for, weeks at a time, and then other times I can just dive in and do it. I'm self-employed, so I can fluctuate with whatever the demand is that I have going on at any particular time. But I like to take a long time making a cymbal. So you can feasibly you can knock out a cymbal in 3 hours. It's a moot point to do that, in my opinion, but
Sure.
it's, I like to hammer a couple hours, put it aside, tweak it, put it aside, or rotate through stock. Everything gets to sit for a long period of time. And then the hard part is to not lose track of the direction I'm trying to hit. Like I mentioned earlier, I like doing repetitive cymbal making. So I get a particular sound that I want to run down, and then veer off here and there a little bit, go through the cause and effect phase, and then now I have a good idea of why it sounds like it does.
Yeah, right on.
And it takes out some of the randomness and the voodoo factor that can creep in.
Do you do something to do like a patina on the cymbals? That's actually something I noticed about the one that I saw. I'm curious.
As far
you
as
don't have to say if it's like a secret or something.
No, it's a secret. It's vinegar, lemon juice, and salt.
Oh, okay.
And I really only do that as basically, it just gives a patina that a cymbal would take on in 6 months.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it helps
yeah.
protect against fingerprints.
Sure.
So when you're doing shows and everybody's, pizza fingers, and if you don't get to wash your cymbals off immediately, those can etch in pretty deeply.
I do lathing at the
helps.
shop, and I've shipped cymbals to people, and my hands always get so dirty. And I've had customers complain, like, there's a fingerprint on my cymbal. I'm sorry. I was in a hurry.
I like letting them age, patina, fingerprints,
Sure.
It doesn't faze me at all. I have to kind of make a conscious effort to clean a cymbal before I present it. 'Cause
Sure.
I don't see it anymore.
Yeah.
That was something I find a little bit comical, that when I got into the cymbal business, and kicked in with the Koide cymbals. So 250 cymbals come over, I have all this inventory, and it never occurred to me about the process of having to clean all the cymbals after a show and then before the next one.
Yeah.
So you have to set up, wash every single cymbal, dry it, buff it off, put it back in the bag,
Right.
and then just repeat. And then to have hundreds of pounds of cymbals that you have to schlep, and
Because you can wear
create-
gloves, but everyone who's trying them at the
Yeah,
the
you
show
just have
might
to kind of
not.
roll with that. And,
Right.
It becomes the bargain stock after about a year. That's where you can start
Sure.
20% off because you just don't want to clean it again.
Yeah. What do you use to clean them?
I vinegar.
Just vinegar.
Vinegar
Okay.
with
Yeah,
a little bit of dishwashing soap.
Nice.
And you just kind of put it on, let it sit for 30 seconds, and then clean it off, and that seems to do the trick.
They are very beautiful when they're just like fresh off the lathe. There's
Yeah,
nothing
no
like
doubt,
that. If it's
no
like,
doubt.
but lathe chatter really bothers me. But if it's like a perfect lathe without any chatter, it's just like, ooh, that's a beautiful thing.
It is.
But yeah,
Lathe
tell me a
job.
little more about your process. Like what makes your cymbals like kind of? I mean, it sounds like you have a jazz background. So are you going for like a lot of
mostly
lighter,
lighter weights, nothing above medium.
little washy maybe?
Yeah, a little
and then-
washy.
Do you ever go for like a cymbal off a record? Is that something you do? Like if someone
yeah.
asks you, I want that, that one from
I'll do
Tony
that.
Williams or something,
Yeah, well, yeah, there's some of those I stay away from. I try to suss out somebody when we're discussing a commission, because I won't do a commission for everybody. And it's just because some people are really hyper-fixated on a particular sound, and there's just no way it's going to get from their head to mine. Or I put it this way, I don't want to invest the time into it because it's going to be,
Sure.
we're mailing that cymbal back and forth.
Right.
And I know from dealing with the public that there's just some people you will never satisfy. So I much prefer to just make it and let people play it and buy it
Yeah,
if they
yeah.
like it. And if it just all depends. It depends.
Depends on the cymbal and
And just my interaction with them, because we're going to do this dance to try to make this thing create something that they have in their head. If they send me a recording, I want something that sounds like that.
Yeah.
That helps greatly. And most people do give me, files that they want to aim towards.
so maybe a little bit of a direction, but I'm not making you a carbon copy of this.
Exactly.
Right.
I don't make any promises, and if
Sure.
as long as their request is a symbol that I feel like I could sell somewhere else online, I don't hold their feet to the fire on buying it.
Right.
Unless it's something really crazy that they want to do, then I would tell them up front.
Sure.
We'll take a couple cracks at it, and you're going to buy this symbol regardless.
Do you make anything that's more like avant-garde kind of cymbals? Like anything that's really
Out of blanks or failures.
hey, whatever.
So,
yeah.
I mean,
tell me an interesting story.
Yeah, I mean, if I can get my blank cost back out of an experiment gone awry,
Sure.
it's still a success.
right.
So, yeah.
I mean, the
have one-
ozone cymbals, like that style with like extra like big holes in them. That's one that
There's
would
that.
fall in that category. Or I was just wondering because, like Matt Bettis, maybe he's an example of someone
Right.
who like he's had some cymbals that I played on that were like they had like really unique hammering, like I've never seen before.
That's pretty much what I do is hammering. I don't get too much into hole drilling, ozone,
Sure,
that
sure,
sort of
yeah,
thing. There's some, like EMJ. I love his work. He just is off the charts. Everything is. He comes at it from a completely different angle than most of us. He does things that I would never dream of doing. Even in just making a traditional cymbal, I would feel like
Yeah.
that symbol's not complete, but it is, and that's the beauty I love of this craft. Is that
And who are you talking about?
EMJ, Yuki. He is a Japanese cymbal maker that he is actually sort of a visual artist as well as a musician, musical instrument maker.
Okay, I think I've heard of him.
Yeah, he's a pretty big. Actually, he sold some cymbals to, let's see, King Crimson, one of the three drummers there.
Cool.
He's had some attention with, and he also created the multi-tone cymbal.
Okay.
So it looks like a pizza, and we call it the tang, and each lobe has been hammered to have a different bell chime.
Oh,
to it.
see, yeah, that
so
would
it's
be
a multi-tone cymbal.
in that
and-
category of something very
yeah.
different. Yeah, cool.
So he gives
I'm gonna have to
me a
scope
lot of
that out.
inspiration. Yeah, I didn't bring any this time of his, but yeah, check those out.
Awesome.
It's a great job.
Very interesting. Yeah, you never know with all these cymbal experts. Yeah, every single guy has like some new interesting insight to add.
Well, I love the fact that the tools that you have and your approach will change the outcome.
Sure.
So there's the odds of us reproducing each other, happenstance is pretty slim.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Everybody's going to have their own particular sound eventually. Mine is now starting to gel in a particular track
Right.
over time. And it's in part due to my method, of course, but that's always changing. But my tooling has stayed pretty consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So if I really want to change something, I'll add a new hammer or reface a hammer to be able to do some different things, or hopefully have a different effect.
Sure.
I mean, basically it boils down to profile, mass, and stiffness, and then you get on over into lathing and some other elements that change things. But
Sure,
it's
sure.
a relatively basic, simple formula.
Yeah, right on. So, do you have any like advice to people about like looking for a cymbal that works for them? Anything that like?
Yeah, I think probably the thing that I run up the most against is the cymbal that sounds perfect and sweet right in front of you is maybe not the cymbal you need. It depends on your application. If you're recording and you're going to have a microphone right near it or on it, that might be just what you need. Or if you're playing in a quiet environment like a cafe.
Good point. Yeah.
But if you have a stage and you need some projection and you're not going to have that much sound reinforcement.
Sure. Or like in here, for example, cymbal's going to sound so different
this
in
would
here.
be a tough space, yeah. But that lesson was driven home with one cymbal I had. It was an IGOP 21 Turk jazz ride.
Okay.
And up close, it was just gnarly. It was hard to play. You didn't want to hit it. It wasn't inspiring when you were on top of it. And I was playing a little jazz trio. And of course, you're sitting on, everybody's on top of each other. The other musicians hated that cymbal.
Sure.
But I always recorded my gigs, and then when I would let people sit in and I could go out and listen, that cymbal sounded great.
Right.
Up close, especially if somebody called it a ballad, it was brutal. I mean, you just didn't want to hit it, you didn't want to touch it, it was terrible. And it was an extreme example, but a cymbal that has some funkiness to it, some weird overtones, you get some distance and all that kind of melds together, and then you have all the other instruments, the whole package pushing forward.
Yeah.
That cymbal will project, and hopefully it'll sound good when it melds together.
Right.
The cymbal that sounds really crystalline and clear is going to be difficult to get out there.
The great
in
thing
a-
about
in a
having
natural.
all you guys making cymbals from scratch the way you are is just the variety that we all have. We're all really lucky. I guess it's kind of like a golden age in cymbal making, I guess.
It's a rebirth of it, yeah.
Absolutely, because sometimes you run into like you get like 20 cymbals from a big manufacturer and every single one sounds almost exactly the same.
Right.
But yeah, like some cymbals they can be like this one sounds kind of nasty. This one it maybe wouldn't be great with like a mic up close to it, but in a big room it just sounds absolutely perfect. Yeah.
I love it when I run up on a cymbal that, it's like guess the weight of that cymbal game.
Sure.
Something I do. And how you can be, even with all the experience one gains messing with this, and you can still be wrong, between the feel and the sound, and then you look over, flip it over and see the grams.
Sure.
And it's like you're off by 300 grams. It's like, how is that possible? But it
No.
is, and that's the magic.
But my dad
of it.
says it plays light. Some cymbals they play light when they, depending on how much. That might have something to do with like tension, maybe.
It's all it, yeah.
If they have like bottom tension, I think they kind of wobble a little more. But yeah, we did an experiment once. We were all talking about patina earlier. I don't know how many of you were here for that. But what is the difference of a patina? Like if like a really old A versus let's say like a brand new A. And we actually did an experiment. Now this was over the internet. It wasn't like in person, but it was a blind test. And no one got it right. It was a brand new set of Zildjian A hats versus a really old set of Zildjian A hats that were green.
The psychological
And,
factor in cymbals is pretty steep.
Yeah.
And the cymbal voodoo that that is out there.
Right.
I try not to buy into it.
Sure.
But I do on occasion. It creeps in, That's I love the mystery and the mystique of the whole process.
Yeah.
And it gives you the opportunity to be proven wrong over and over and over. So it keeps you pushing forward, trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, how can people like find out more about your company?
Okay, so I sort of have three things running. There's BW Cymbals, which is the brand that I make. Then Bronze Pie is an online store that features all independent cymbal makers.
Okay, I see.
And then
just go into all the details about this.
and then Coe USA, which is that, and they're all kind of bound together.
Okay.
Each Coe Day gives me the opportunity to take either some of the other guys to shows that can't go there,
Right.
And same with my BW cymbals. If I was just doing my cymbal brand, it would not be feasible to go to NAMM or PASIC for the cost and the effort,
Yeah.
But being that, you have a company behind you, you just kind of I'm riding on the coattails of that is essentially what's happening there.
Nice.
And that was kind of the design from the beginning, sort of the whole process of cymbal making is just looking for little opportunities for finding a tool, finding an anvil, exposure, getting a player, repetition. I'm big on that.
Awesome.
So,
Yeah, I can't wait to try out some of your cymbals. I think there was one like right. Are you next to our booth? We're like.
I'm next to Eric Binder and across.
Yeah, you're right next to us. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're on the left side of me. Then.
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. I haven't seen you
We're
over
actually
there yet.
well, we're on the right side of Eric, so not the left
One
side,
over,
but yeah.
Okay, very good.
Awesome, man.
I have my goggles on, when I come to these shows. I kind of
Sure.
hibernate and live in my little area, and
Yeah, it's really hard to. It's so
hard to get
overwhelming.
away.
So many people that say hi to. Hey, it's been so long. Great to see you.
A lot of distractions.
For sure.
It's tough to focus.
Have you been to a bunch of these shows before in Chicago? How
This
many?
is my first Chicago show.
Oh, nice. Well,
It's
welcome.
a perfect
Yeah.
show for what I'm trying
Yeah,
to do.
Rob's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's really.
He's been wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah,
the whole process.
great meeting you. Let's see, how are we doing time-wise here? Actually, yeah, we're basically at the end.
Okay.
I could maybe do like one question if does anybody have a question? Anyone? All right. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there we go. All right.
Cool. Yeah.
Well,
and then
thank you.
If anyone thinks of anything, all the cymbal smiths are going to be 12 o'clock tomorrow in the main space. Yeah. So come on down and hang out. We're going to have cookies, and that's sponsored by Maxwell Drums. So thanks.
Looking forward. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. All right. We got Paul Francis. Come on up, my friend.
I'm like Bobby Brady in the.
Sure. Make sure to get relatively close to the mic there.
How's everybody doing? Yeah, it's good to be here. It's good to be among a lot of great cymbal makers. So it's an honor. So.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been having a fantastic time. I've been meeting some new people, hanging out with some people that I've known for a while. You'd be in that category. You were just over at the drum shop, which was great
fantastic.
fun.
Great day.
Yeah.
Really, really great day.
And it was awesome. I got to watch you do some of your craft. So I'm just going to let you go.
Okay.
Maybe just start out with like how you got into music and
I have
cymbal. We
30
don't
minutes,
have
right?
too much time, but yeah, just
So I think a lot of people know my backstory, but I worked for Zildjian for 32 years. I've been playing drums for 45 years. I'm actually playing more drums than ever now.
Nice.
Starting my own thing, but after some changes at Zildjian, I had to wait a little bit and decided that I wanted to continue to make cymbals, and I did that, and started literally making cymbals in my garage. And I wanna thank a couple people while I'm here. Of course, my wife and family for all the support. My business partner Sarah Hagan, that I think a lot of you know. I want to thank Nicky Moon. He actually lent me an anvil when I started and got me some blanks. Of course, your dad literally texted me 2 seconds after I posted a picture on Instagram of a hammered blank.
Oh, nice.
So last year at this time, you got to see the first post Zildjian cymbals made by me. So it's really, really fantastic. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all of the outpouring of love from the drumming community and the fact that I continue to make cymbals. So, I don't know what else to add.
Yeah,
to it.
That's
So,
perfect. Maybe we can just go a little bit into your process, maybe give us a little bit of insight. I mean, I know I've been listening. You did a great presentation at our shop, and we had a bunch of people come by, and that was fantastic. But yeah, tell all our friends here.
So I really, today I wanted to just kind of speak about sound. Whenever we go, because we're all drummers, whenever we go to check out drums or cymbals or whatever, we find something that sounds good and feels good to us. And, I kind of corningly say, when something vibrates us the right way, because, cymbals and drums, are a way for us to non-verbally express ourselves. And when something feels good to us, then that instrument is going to make the other musicians that you're playing with and the people out in the audience feel good. I had the privilege to work with a lot of great famous drummers. Adam Nussbaum's in the audience here. And the one common theme with regard to sound is you want to find something that it speaks to you as a player, and then you can go and make music with it. And we're all using the same type of material.
Sure.
And there's no moving parts with cymbals. There's nothing to assemble, and it's just this great mystery on how you achieve the sound. But material, cup shape, hammering. There's only two ways to hammer a cymbal. You have hammer rows, or the hammer marks are all over the place, symmetrical or asymmetrical. Weight, lathing technique. But the biggest common theme from my years and years of making cymbals and working with different drummers is that you want, first and foremost, a cymbal that can kind of do all things. You want something that can, have good stick definition, but also you can crash. And one of the things that Armin Zildjian taught me was every cymbal is a crash ride. Every cymbal you should be able to ride. Every cymbal you should be able to crash. There's a lot of artists. Again, I'm gonna keep pointing to Adam because I worked with him a lot. I've known Adam for 36 years now. You want a clarity in the sound, and you might want some dirt. Adam likes cymbals when you shank them, that they give him a higher note. And all of these factors come in together so you can make music and you get your signature sound. Everyone
feel free to grab chairs or move up in the front here.
Down.
There's a bunch of open seats in the front. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I think it's kind of funny that a lot of people, drummers, argue over cymbals. The cymbals don't make any noise until you put your personality into them. Which is fantastic. So. The thing, I don't want to get into, unless somebody really wants to know, but techniques and stuff like that. It's all about you choosing the sound. And one of the great things about this show, because this is the first time I've ever been to this show, is that this is a renaissance in percussion manufacturing.
Yeah, right on.
Especially cymbal making. There's so many great choices. Please go around, talk to all the cymbal makers, and the one that resonates with you, play their product, check it out, support them. Because, I have this joke, what's worse than telling your parents you want to be a drummer? Tell them you want to be a cymbal maker for the rest of your life, It's like, how did the jazz musician become a millionaire? He started with 2, right?
Sure.
Come on, Adam, you know that one. So, 3 million, yeah. So it's all about sound. It's all about you finding what works for you, because it's going to translate to the audience.
Yeah, man.
Certain cymbals are designed to give certain sounds and characteristics, but if you go and find something that has good stick, a nice crash sound, there's some bell there. You don't want something that's too thin or washy if you're playing in a room like this, because you won't hear it past the front bass drum hoop.
Yeah.
You know, if you're playing in a restaurant with a trio, yeah, those things
Yeah,
speak
we
well.
were just talking about that.
The other day.
And then there's just infinite possibilities with cymbals. Yeah.
You know, people like to ask me, well, you know, how many hammers do you use? And I have 2 hammers.
Nice.
You know, that's all. That's it. You know, and all of my
If it works.
all of my influence on what I'm doing now, you know, came from working for 32 years at a major cymbal company, and all the wisdom that got imparted to me by, you know, Armin Zildjian, Lenny DiMuzio, Leon Chiappini.
Do you have any like
Armand-
stories you can tell?
Oh boy. I'll tell. How about if I tell you a story about Armin Zildjian? And he taught me a lesson.
That'd be great.
To not judge a book by its cover. Okay, and this has to do with sound too. So Mike Mangini had called the company and said, I have the best special effects cymbal. One of my students brought this cymbal in, and you guys have to check this out. You have to make it. So he sent it into the company. It was in a plastic shopping bag. And the artist relations manager at the time, his name was Jim McGathy. He got the cymbal, and he called me up to his office. He says, I got that cymbal I told you that Mike said that was just like, we had to make it. And I went up to his office, and he pulled the cymbal out, and it was a brass cymbal that was all bent up. And it looked like, you know, some kid had just pummeled the piss out of it. And Jim's like, yeah, you got to play this. This thing's great. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We're making serious cymbals here at the company.
Sure.
You know, he's like, just take it. So I took it, and I walked back down into the factory where my office was, and Armin Zildjian happened to be in the cymbal testing room with Leon. So I said to myself, I'm going to put this to bed. You know, what a waste of my time. So I knocked on the door, Armin waved me in, and I walked into the room. And I said, hey boss, I have a cymbal that I want to show you. And he said, yeah, let me see it. And he wasn't really looking at me. He was deep in conversation with Leon about something that happened in like 1967 or something.
Sure.
So I gave him the bag, and he pulled the cymbal out, and he didn't even look at it. And he asked Leon for a stick, and he hit it 4 or 5 times. He didn't say anything. He put it back in the bag. He handed me the bag, and he said, that's the best special effects cymbal I ever heard. You should make that.
Weren't expecting that.
And I said, you're right. And I made it the next day, and it was the 14-inch trash former that ended up in the ZXT series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
You know, everything's about sound. Check everything out. Give everything its due.
Yeah.
So that's
Cool
kind of
story, man.
a cool story
Thanks.
about that, you know. And it wasn't a high-end cymbal, but what he was looking at was, okay, what is this piece of metal? What does it do? And he played it.
Sure.
You know. So
Yeah, it's a very, like everything has kind of its purpose.
Yep.
And with the drums and much more so than most instruments.
Yeah.
We have, it's so customizable, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a great thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of great opportunities with a lot of great drummers. Elvin Jones had come in, and he had played some of the very first K. Constantinople cymbals. And again, I was in a room with him.
So when is this?
This is like 1997.
Okay.
You know, and this is before they were introduced.
Sure,
And-
sure, yeah.
And he had come in, and we had him set up in this room called the orchestral room that had great acoustics. And I was nervous. This was Elvin Jones. This is like Moses coming down off the mountain with the tablets, right? So, you know, I have these cymbals set up, and he played the cymbals. And I'm like, I'm waiting. I'm on a little more trash, a little brighter, a little darker. I need thinner. And he plays, and he put the stick down, and he left the room. And I'm saying to myself, no, he's going to find somebody. Who's this kid? You know, go get me somebody that doesn't have as many teeth, that's been doing it a little bit longer. And he was gone for about 10, 15 minutes. And then he came back into the room, and I said, Elvin, is everything okay? You know? And he's like, what? I said, you played the cymbals, you didn't say anything, and you left. He goes, oh, no, I knew all the cymbals were going to be good.
Nice.
I had to go to the bathroom. And he said, I like this one and this one. And then he went into this kind of, this rant about, you know, when I was in the Army, I played this, you know, half a crash cymbal pair, like a band cymbal. You have any of those band cymbals? And I said, yes. And, you know, picked one out for him, and that was it. We were done.
Nice.
20 minutes.
Nice and quick.
Yeah, and it was.
He's off to the gig.
It was very strange, and so why am I sharing this story? You know, it's him that's going to make the music with the tools. Find the tools, find the sounds that speak to you. Go make music with them.
Yeah, right on.
That's really the theme of my talk today.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily the nuts and bolts, you know, how fast does your lathe spin, or
Sure.
what tools do you use, or how many hammers do you have. It's about finding something that speaks to you and play it and make music and create.
Yeah,
you know?
man, right
Yeah.
on.
So,
Thanks for sharing these stories.
yeah.
Nothing quite like getting insight into some of the great, the greatest musicians in history and how they approached cymbals and
Yeah.
Very cool.
They, no one came in and said it has to, be super trashy and funky. They want something where they can, lay it down for the other band members.
Yeah.
I'm curious, does anybody have any questions about anything?
Yeah, we can do questions.
Yeah.
Let's see, what are we doing time-wise?
We're good.
Here? Yeah, we got about 10 minutes, so just raise your hand.
Yeah.
And then actually, can we bring the mic over? So it's wireless here so that everyone can hear.
Some people asked me early on last year, are you, what are you going for? Are you going for that old K sound, or what are you doing? I said, no, I'm just making good cymbals that every drummer can play. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to find something that they can play, on their weekend gig, or, just maybe if they just play in their house, or if they're a professional drummer that, it can be a workhorse cymbal.
Right.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
So I'm not making old Ks. I won't go on record in saying that.
Sure.
So when somebody's a new drummer and they get inspired by their hero, they chase after him, sometimes that turns into a brand loyalty. Oh, my favorite guy plays Paiste, so I'm going to do that, or whatever. Can you talk a little bit about the value, pros and cons, if you will, of looking to outfit a whole thing with the same brand, the same label, or picking and choosing from all these different makers, What's the value of one person buying everything from Royal, or everything from Nicky Moon, or one from each booth?
Well, what you're buying is the philosophy of that maker. You have a trust in them that they're going to provide you with a quality of instrument so you can express yourself. If somebody's a new drummer, like you mentioned, if they're going to pick out a basic set of cymbals, they have to have a ride cymbal where you can hear time. Okay. If they're only going to get one crash cymbal, I would recommend a 17 or 18, probably a medium thin, because you can also use it as an alternative ride cymbal, and then a nice set of hi-hats. And that way, you can do everything with it. When I was at Zildjian and somebody would say, oh, my son's going to play cymbals, buy cymbals, his first professional set of cymbals, what should he go for? And most people would think, oh, you got to buy the most expensive, and that's never the answer. The answer is, you want to buy some A Zildjians, because A Zildjians can do everything for you. So you want to find those kind of bread and butter cymbals.
Like
versatile cymbals. Yep.
Yeah, right
so
on.
that, again, back to my philosophy with the cymbal craftsman, and then there's some new Royal type of cymbals. So there's two sound colors. There's a bright and a darker.
You should talk about that.
Yeah. So they're for everybody. And then the great thing, back to me saying, it's a renaissance of cymbal makers, the great thing is that if you have some specifics in the sound on what you want, we can do that for you. So if you're really looking for a specific sound, we can translate that into the piece of metal. Okay, where some of the, the major companies, they don't have the infrastructure to do that. So now we can. I can provide the same service that I used to give to Adam to everybody. Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm wondering sonically if there's a reason why, if sonically there's a reason why picking all cymbals from one maker helps them blend better, or does that really not even matter?
No, because you want colors. So you might find a color over here from another maker that will fit in. I mean, we're all making cymbals from the same alloy, and our personality is coming through it. So, I was taught, when you're helping somebody pick a set of cymbals, you want to make sure that they don't pick all the same sound. So if they're picking
Right,
three or four crashes, you don't want all bright crashes.
Contrast.
Yes.
Contrast
Or a china or a splash or a trash crash, something like that. So you can express yourself, because we don't sit here and we don't talk like this because we're not robots, and when we play drums we don't want to play like this. So that's what you want to do. You want to pick colors.
Yeah. Any other questions? We don't have too much time. Right up front here. Hey, good to see you. Yeah, you're up.
Yeah. Hi.
He's got the mic for you, so make sure you don't feed back there. Yeah. There we go.
Can people hear you?
There we go. Can anyone?
Here we go. Now we hear you. All right, go ahead.
All right.
Testing.
I found, so I know one big thing that's changed in recent years relatively is that quality control is very high nowadays. Things are consistent. Things are really good. I've played some really cool old cymbals that are asymmetrical, not in their hammering necessarily, but in their actual shape. So like a bell that's like half, not nicely shaped, or maybe the edge of the cymbal is curved on one side.
You're talking about the old Ks.
Old Ks, yeah. Or honestly, it could be anything, but do you have any experience in experimentation of purposefully doing that? And if so, have you been able to get any kind of consistent sound qualities out of that?
Well, if I'm trying to recreate something that somebody's referencing, I'll give you a perfect example. So for 10 years, I had the cymbal in my office that Tony used to record the Nefertiti album. Tony gave it to Wallace Roney, and Wallace and Vince Wilburn brought it up to Zildjian. Now that cymbal has a hook in the edge, hooks down just a little bit, and then the cup it's like crooked.
Yeah.
Because they used to put the cups in over in Turkey with sledgehammers. There's two guys with sledgehammers. That's why each K that was made was very, very individualistic.
Yeah.
And a lot of the early A's from 1930 up through probably the mid-60s were very, very individualistic too. So if you're looking to capture a certain sound like that, yes, it can be repeatable. It's nearly impossible to make something identical in sound. Even with Paiste, where they say everything's very, very close, they're not. Each piece of metal reacts just a little bit differently, no matter how consistent the blank is. So can you reproduce something like that? Yes, sure, if that's what you're looking for. Will I focus on that with my cymbal making to kind of send out to the dealers that are buying cymbals from me? Not sure yet, but if there's a request, I'll do it. I pretty much say to anybody that talks to me, I'll make whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfectly answers that question. Thank you.
Wonderful. Any more questions? We got a lot of people. One over here. Yeah, this is great.
Paul, how you got one, and let's say you're not aiming to make the Nefertiti. How much of it is you saying, I want the blank to be this, versus the blank takes you on?
This is really great because
good question.
This goes to the visit to the store.
Sure.
So I sent an 18-inch blank, and I was planning on making a crash ride, just a general purpose 18-inch crash ride, and just say, okay, this is how I hammer a blank. And sometimes the metal doesn't behave. So I was working it, and I was using your anvil and hammers and stuff, and the shape came up just a little bit higher than I wanted, and I said, you know what? This is going to be a really, really great kind of Bill Stewart-y style 18, and that's where I took it. Most of the time, when I aim to make 5 18-inch crash cymbals or 5 22-inch cymbal craftsman crash rides, they come out. I have a template to make sure that it kind of stays in the area that I want. But the thing about cymbal making, and especially with the blanks, when they anneal them and then they quench them in the tank of water, each one, even if it's a batch that's in the oven, each one is not exactly the same thickness, so it doesn't quench exactly the same way. So a softer blank, is going to behave differently than one that's not as soft as the one that you just worked. So, there's always kind of a plan, but they're still individually made. So,
And like, don't fight with the metal, maybe?
yeah, don't order blanks and then let them sit around for a month, because then you're fighting with the metal.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that.
Somebody contacted me, says, oh, I have these blanks. I'm like, how old are they? And he said, like 3 years. I go, nope, not even gonna attempt to hammer those into shape.
We can probably go a little bit late. We have a minute left.
Listen, I want my full 30 minutes.
Yeah, right. I want my time. Yeah, don't. And then, everyone, just so you know, tomorrow at 12, all the cymbalsmiths are going to be over in the upstairs area in the main building, and then we're going to have like some treats. That's from Maxwell Drums. And so, if you want to talk to everyone, we'll see how many people show up. But that'll be a way to get a little bit, one-on-one time.
Yeah, you definitely want to go and see everybody. You want to go and see everybody. So.
But yeah, any more quick questions, Joe? Yeah.
How much would a cymbal change in sound over the years? Like you're saying, immediately the bell changes immediately. Let's say you got 10 years old versus 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Well, you can, with a brand new cymbal, you can get about 90% there. You get in the ballpark. What happens with the metal is it age hardens over time. So what I just mentioned about a blank being quenched. So 80-20 when it's rolled, it's like glass. If you drop it on the floor, it will shatter. It's super, super hard. So you anneal it, and then you quench it to soften it down, and then you hammer it and do all those processes. The hammering, you're putting the strength back into the blank, but you had to soften it down in order to put the strength back into the blank. So in the first 48 hours is the biggest change in sound. If you were to hear a cymbal right off of a lathe, you probably wouldn't play it. It's dull, So in the first 48 hours, it starts to open up or stress relieve. And then slowly over time, the metal continues to get harder. There's a misconception that the metal gets softer, which is not the case. It gets harder, and older cymbals are easier to play because you don't have to put as much energy into them. But I have taken really old cymbals and made duplicates of them, and over time, they will start to resemble the original one, Well, it can, it'll change a lot in a year and stuff, But if you have the same bell, same curvature, similar hammering, similar weight spec, diameter, you're pretty much there. If you're afraid to take out an old cymbal, one of us can, if they're willing. I don't want to volunteer anybody that doesn't want to copy old cymbals, but you can get there. I've done it quite a bit for people. Yeah.
Yeah, and so one last thing. Any cool new things we can expect in the future here? That's usually my last question.
So this show, we're debuting, kind of a brighter sound, and they're marked Royal cymbal. So the name of the company is Royal. And under that umbrella is both a Royal cymbal, which is, your kind of bread and butter type of sound, and then Cymbal Craftsman, which came out last year. And for legal reasons, the Royal thing couldn't happen until this year.
Oh, I see.
So Cymbal Craftsman is more of your darker kind of complex, random hammered cymbal, and if you want something specially made, it would be a Cymbal Craftsman.
Yeah. Check out the booth. Yeah.
Please come by. The Royal Cymbal Craftsman booth. Sarah couldn't be here, my business partner, but she's very, very knowledgeable about cymbals. So please go and speak with her as well. And please go visit all the cymbal makers here. This is just amazing.
Right on.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Great job, man. I'll see you. We can probably just move right on to the next here. So we got Mike Mongiello here. And this guy, I've played a bunch of your cymbals actually.
Oh yeah.
For whoever was here for Eric Binder earlier, he introduced me to some of your cymbals, and they were really something.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, he said he had brought some stuff over to the shop.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a cymbalsmith from Philadelphia. I originally started self-taught about 4.5 years ago after a bunch of research, and the same story as everybody else who makes cymbals. I was obsessed with a certain kind of sound or idea, and I looked around for a long time and couldn't find it, and found that there were people making cymbals. So
Right.
I decided to try it out. I started in only working in stainless steel.
Okay.
I made an anvil, and I chopped up some hammers, and I knew I could get stainless steel at the time a little bit cheaper than bronze. Maybe not anymore these days, but
Sure.
and I didn't want to ruin like a ton of bronze, you know. So I said, let me try this out. So I did about a year of all stainless steel.
Okay.
And then I started ordering bronze, and caught some attention from some people, including this guy, Francisco, who it's amazing that Francisco was able to be here. That's Francisco Domene from Brazil. He invited me to his factory in Brazil, and I did some training with him.
Very nice.
I've also done some work with Nicky Moon and some work with Dave Collingwood, it's also amazing that he's here. Other than that, it's mostly just trial and error with myself, and wrestling somewhere between craftsperson and artisan, and
Sure.
what that means and where that brings us, you know?
Yeah. The cymbals that I played of yours, they definitely had like kind of old K vibe.
Well, the cymbals that you played specifically were for
These are Eric's ones.
Yeah, so that's a series that I released in February called the Prestige series.
Okay.
Eric Binder, I'm very fortunate to work with him as an artist with me, and I sent him a cymbal on a whim because I was like, hey, this kind of has a K vibe. Do you want to check it out? And
Nice.
he called me and said, we need to work together.
I like it.
So we developed some stuff. I went to his house and studied a big pile of broken Ks. And I don't do the cloning thing. I don't, but I was able to sit and look at about 40 of his cymbals and sort of just study the curvatures and the bells and decide what I liked about them and what I didn't like. And
Sure.
I combined them into a few different models, so none of them are a specific thing.
Can you tell me a little bit about like the philosophy? Like what did you like about the old Ks? What didn't you like? And how did you...
So I didn't really like the ones that were super, super, super tall. I tended to like the ones that had
Like bell, you mean?
No, I mean like the profile. I didn't like the super
Okay.
umbrella profiles.
Okay, yeah.
I did like them when they started to umbrella out. I liked the beginning of the umbrella, and I liked a little bit flatter, and I liked the smaller, shallower bells. And I know that a lot of those were in Europe, the shallower bells, and then we wound up in the United States, the ones that got imported to Gretsch.
Okay. Yeah. Some of them have a G on them.
Some of the bigger bells,
Sure.
the taller bells.
Right.
But I liked the flatter ones, so I decided, okay, we're going to do this series all hand-formed bells, which is stupid because now I have to do that every time.
Sure.
But they're a little very flat. Now, everybody who plays one of them says like, oh wow, it's like a flat ride. I said, it's not a flat ride, there's a bell, you can see it. But it's very flat, wide bells. And what that gives you is a lower tone.
Like a fundamental low pitch.
Fundamentally low pitch. It doesn't let the overtones get like crazy out of control. You still get your stick, but you get the presence of having a bell. So that's kind of what I went for with that. And then the models were like, okay, here's one that's a little lower, here's one that's taller, and then Eric, like there was a lot of those old Ks that you saw that had like a really wide bell, like really wide.
Sure.
You look at them, you're like, wow, that's big. So Eric likes those, and he loves rivets.
Sure.
I had to buy 1 million rivets because he wanted a big wide bell and rivets. So that was his signature ride. So I think I have a couple of those with me today. But they were really cool. And then I experimented with how I wanted to do a patina.
Do you have a booth?
I do have a booth. Yeah,
Nice. I'm definitely going to.
142.
I haven't been able to come by yet, but
Yeah.
I'm so busy always at the shop. But
I understand.
I'll be there.
Maybe tomorrow will be a little bit easier for all of us to float around.
And then you're going to come to the 12 o'clock thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Tell me a little more about like how you originally got into like cymbal making and music, just in general.
So for music, I am jazz drummer trapped in the body of a punk rock drummer.
Okay, cool.
I don't know how to play jazz. I can swing with my right hand, and as soon as you add any other limbs, everything goes to hell. So I played in like punk rock bands, metal bands, doom bands, and but I always loved cymbals. I would try to make cymbals that were inappropriate for all of those types of music work. It was like I can't tell you how many high definition rides I had to sell because they just weren't cutting through Marshall stacks. I don't know why, but
Sure.
but I eventually I started playing weirder stuff and semi-improvisational music, and then I was able to use some really cool cymbals, and I mostly played Zildjians, and then I started branching out and playing. Okay, I'll try Paiste, I'll try Sabian, and then Meinl had started coming to fruition after the Byzant stuff came out, and then Turkish cymbals started being popular again, and so I was trying Egops and Bosphorus and all that sort of thing. But then I wanted custom cymbals. I wanted people to make them for me, and I didn't know where to start. So I wound up buying a lot of, I don't want to talk poorly about a brand or anything, but I bought a lot of Saludas because the marketing campaign was custom. These are custom. And they were custom in that I could choose finishes, that sort of thing. But they weren't what we all want. They weren't like, oh, does it have this vibe? Is it like this? Does it have this kind of profile? Does it do that? So I wound up getting rid of those, and nothing wrong with them. They just weren't for me. And then I started doing some research and hearing about Spitzino and Matt Bettis and Craig Lauritsen and his name escapes me, Steve Hubbock. Man, that guy, if you want to see some weird stuff, Steve Hubbock, that guy rules.
The avant-garde of cymbal making.
Yeah. And Matt Nolan, who's amazing. And then all these people who are now in front of me, Dave Collingwood, Nicky Moon. And I was really like, wow, okay, you can do that. So how do you do that? And the short answer is get an anvil and a hammer, and then you're a cymbalsmith. That's the short answer. The journey is very long to good cymbalsmith after that, but it becomes your life very quickly.
Sure. Tell me some more about. I've seen a couple of your cymbals, but some of the other things that you're kind of
So my favorite way to make a cymbal
for.
is to get a piece of metal, and when it's done, it's done. That's my favorite way to work.
Sure.
But for monetary purposes, I have released series.
So you don't always like plan ahead before?
I don't always plan ahead. I like to improvise.
Yeah, like jazz.
I love to improvise. I love the cymbal to just be what it's going to be when it's done. But I do have ranges. I have a series called Workhorse, which is a traditional series. It's hammered and fully lathed, and similar to what Paul was saying, it's meant to be for whatever you need it to be. Choose the bell, choose the weight, and it's going to do what you need it to do. If you need it to work in a lower setting, if you need it to work in a higher setting, it's going to be a good canvas for you to work with. I have another series called, I pronounce it Avare because I'm a stupid American, but it's Avare. Avare, it's named after the city that Francisco lives in. It's a mostly Turk cymbal that has a singular spiral in the center and a little bit of lathing on the edge. They're kind of silvery, drier, darker, a little funkier, but again, versatile enough to use in a wide range depending on what weight or bell style that you go with. So those are the two main ones that I started, and then I just released the Prestige stuff. I have some other stuff in the works. There's some prototypes at the booth of what will probably develop into the next things. And I do have one stainless steel with me. It's 30 inches.
Oh, I want to try that. Yeah, 30 inches.
I find that stainless steel cymbals, everybody goes, oh, why do you need it to be that big? Stainless steel, I started with stainless steel. I think that stainless steel is a valid sound for cymbals. I think it's a really cool addition to cymbals, but they kind of suck. And the way to get a good sounding, in my opinion, the way to get a good sounding stainless steel cymbal is to make it thin and large in diameter, because that's how you're going to get the low tone and the body and the sort of musicality that you're getting out of B20 bronze out of that particular kind of metal, because it's extremely different than bronze. So you can't approach it like, okay, you've got a 20-inch stainless steel cymbal, that's going to sound a certain kind of way.
What's lathing that stuff like?
Lathing that stuff is very dangerous, because if it hits you in the face, you're in trouble. It's also, I don't lathe steel to remove material. I'll lathe steel for cosmetic reasons, and I'll also lathe it. I'll lathe grooves into it to mess with the.
There's a lot more hammering, a lot less.
It's mostly hammering.
Right.
Yeah. And then
very cool.
a little bit of surface treatments and stuff like that. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, that's great. Maybe give me a little bit more about like your philosophy with. I'm curious. So you're hammering the bells in, I think, right?
Some of them. The Prestige series, I always hammer the bell in, and then some stuff, if I just feel like it, I'll hammer the bell in, or if I'm going for a certain size that isn't available from the manufacturers, from the from the foundry.
Sure.
But I mostly, outside of that series, will use pressed bells.
And do you? You don't have to say, but where do you get your blanks? Are they Turkish usually?
I get most 90% Turkish blanks. I have bought Chinese blanks. I had a similar experience to Ray Byrne.
Sure, yeah.
But I've also used Brazilian bronze, which is very, very good bronze, and I hope to work with that more consistently. But there's pros and cons to using both. Like Paul said, it's all B20, but there's, depending on where you get it from, which foundry, there are subtle differences.
Yeah, subtle.
Yeah, give me a slab of metal with the bell that I asked for, I'll be happy.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So, let's see. You were kind of a last-minute addition to the show. You can actually come up for a little bit and hang out if you want. I'll try and fit you in. Do you want to? Awesome. Yeah. Wonderful. Because Eric was talking about, and you guys are buddies. So.
I'm sorry for the coughing, by the way. I just got over a chest thing.
Oh yeah, no problem. So yeah, Mike. We have water. Yeah. Do you want me to grab you one?
No, I'm okay.
I'll grab you one. Yeah, it's right back there. Are you playing a lot of music these days?
No, I don't play anymore. I said no for the first time to my longtime guitar player. I said, "You want to play?" No.
Oh yeah, just
leave me alone.
Too busy making cymbals. Yeah.
Well, it's making cymbals, and while I have made millions and millions of dollars from making cymbals,
thanks,
thank
man.
you. I still, just for fun, bartend 3 times a week.
Cool.
Because I need to pay my rent.
Sure.
So I don't have a ton of free time, and I was a career bartender almost 20 years. I still do it, and playing in bands forever, and now hammering things 6 inches from my face hours and hours a day. You know what? I kind of don't want to play drums right now.
Sure.
I want to play video games and sit in my house when I have some downtime.
Some free, right.
But I assume at some point I do see myself only making cymbals within the next few years. I do see that we're in that renaissance, and we're at a point where I think a few of us will be standing on our own. I hopefully will be one of them with some tenacity. At that point, when I have a little bit more free time,
sure.
I may get back into playing again, but we'll see.
Yeah. Do you have any advice to people looking to find a cymbal for themselves? Anything when strategies or whatever you want to call it?
I mean, when I look for a cymbal, I was so you don't get into making cymbals unless you're a cymbal nerd.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I've owned a lot of cymbals, and I was always the kind of guy, I would buy a new cymbal for every project. So if I have a new band, I'm selling what I got and getting new cymbals.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If I'm going from a punk rock band to a metal band, I need a different sound.
Sure.
You know, I need a more present bell. I need a heavier weight and a bigger bow, and I need the crashes to be specific tones because I need them to pop out and accentuate. Whereas if I'm playing in something a little bit like punk rock
Like
or
contrast,
something more avant-garde or something, I can go washier and things like that. So for me, it's like pick your cymbals based on what it is you're playing. Don't chase the sound that you think is the perfect sound because it does not exist.
Sure.
Like the perfect sound does not exist. There's no such thing as a perfect cymbal. There's not even such thing as a bad cymbal.
Right.
There are poorly made cymbals, but one of you may select one of those poorly made cymbals and it works exactly for what it is that you want to do. So to me, it's like choose cymbals for what it is that you need to play. You know, have something versatile that you can bring around to lots of different gigs. If you're, you know, I'm not a professional drummer, I never was. Some of you are. You know, some of you gig a lot. Have something versatile that you can use for a lot of things. And then have something specific that is for whatever, okay, I need this because I gig on 5 times a week for this sort of thing, but I have my band where I write my kind of music and I need some funky stuff for that, have that. That's my, I don't know, that's a long-winded
I always say, like, for me, it's like a relationship with each cymbal. Like,
absolutely.
You get to know this one really, really well.
Absolutely.
And that one's special to you. And then,
especially with the handmade cymbals. Now, I mean, like every single cymbal that one of us makes, we're emoting into it. We're putting our energy and ourselves into it in order for it to be a special canvas for someone else to put what they have into it, which is then leaving the cymbal and giving something to the audience. So, like, every single one is different, and you're going to get something out of that.
Yeah, man. Very cool. So, we can probably open it up for some questions right now. First over there, Jake, can you run the mic over?
Oh, just by the way, while we're getting the mic over there, super big thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
Like,
hey, I'm
thank
like
you to
honored.
Steve Maxwell, like, thank you to
be able to talk to all you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you to Rob for putting this on.
Yeah.
Thank you to all
Thanks,
the
Rob.
cymbal smiths who traveled from all over the world. And thank you for including me. I mean, like, just being included in this group of people, the talent that has been gathered here, like, means a lot to me. And thank you guys for coming and checking it out.
Yeah. So, question.
Hey, Mike. I'm wondering, I know you went to Brazil to the foundry out there.
Yeah.
When you went out there, did just seeing the process like change your perspective, or like what kind of did you pick up new techniques or kind of?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, just kind of wanting to know how that experience went for you and changed, you know, maybe changed your.
I mean, going to Brazil first off was amazing, but going to the factory and seeing it happen was very emotional. Seeing bronze get made was incredible. Getting to work with them was incredible. I'm glad that it wasn't, that my first experience with a factory was not a Turkish factory, because in a Turkish factory it's very, very different. Going to Brazil, these are people who love each other and care about each other. There's a lot of hugging and a lot of like having beers after work and sharing meals and really caring about the product that they're putting out and caring about each other and being very welcoming and wanting to share those things. So it was, for me, it was just a super positive experience. And of course, I'm standing around with Francisco, who is extremely good at what he does, and being able to absorb some of what he does, not only because he's teaching it to me, but also because I can watch him work. And the same thing with everyone else that works in the factory. Everyone else that I see work, just like drummers or anything, you see somebody work, you can absorb some of that experience. So watching any of the guys that were in the hammering room, I can see, what is the arm doing? What's the outcome here? What are the guys in the lathe doing? You know? And I think that whether you're in Brazil or New Jersey or Pennsylvania, being exposed to as many different styles as possible is important, because, excuse me, because you're going to be able to assimilate that into you, and then that'll be part of your style, you know.
Yeah, man.
Thank you.
Yeah. Even on that note, Mike.
Yeah. Do you want to take a couple minutes?
Just come up we're very limited in time
Yeah.
because.
So let him speak.
But yeah, just for a minute.
Yeah.
You guys are buddies, so perfect timing.
Thank you, guys.
Good to meet you. Thanks. Come on up. Yeah, Mike. Yeah. I'm gonna be over to the booth for sure. And then everybody, you can come talk to him at 12 o'clock tomorrow. Everyone's going to be there, so if you want to have any more questions, that's the place to go.
Okay.
Yeah, so just tell me about you've got a foundry that.
Yes, I got a foundry.
Yeah, tell me the story.
Okay, let's fight with the language.
Sure.
So I have a foundry. I have a control of the whole process of the cymbal making, from the picking the raw material and melt down, make the ingots, rolling, and press bells and hammering. I have a machine hammering, hand hammering. I was trained by Mustafa Drill in Turkey. I travel a lot of times to Turkey, and I'm very, very, very close from Mustafa. I'm training and always share all the informations I have. I don't keep secrets.
No secrets.
No. Mike, while staying in my factory, okay, come the melting room, let's see how it's made, because it's a kind of a cake recipe.
Mm-hmm.
I can, all the ingredients, but the way you made will make it different.
Mm-hmm.
Then when you get a sheet of bronze, okay, what am I doing? And start hammering and get shape, and you put your personality.
Sure.
And the most important thing that people a little bit forget in these days, that what matters is the sound. It's a musical instrument. So I don't care if I bronze or stainless steel or wherever. If the sound is correct for you, that's matter.
Sure.
So this is the main goal I'm searching for, and I'm going it.
So how did you get into cymbal making originally? Can you tell me a little bit about your story?
I'm making cymbals since 2000, so 23 years, and I was a drummer.
Okay.
Look, my cymbal. How do I make the cymbals? And I didn't found nothing. And
did you start out with, do you have Zildjians or maybe?
Yeah, Zildjians and Sabians and B8 crap from Brazil.
Sure.
Yeah, so I'm get it and start hammering, and anyway, screwed everything and starting to understand a little bit of the shapes and acoustics, and then I started buying blanks from Turkey. And okay, now I know how to make it, but I want to make my own bronze because I need to control everything I want to. And this is the craziness, and become obsessed.
Sure. When was the first time you went to Turkey?
Good question, 2009.
2009, nice. That's incredible. And then when did you start the foundry?
I started foundry 5 to 6 years ago.
Okay. Wow, very cool.
Yes.
Do you have a booth?
I don't have a booth, but
did you bring any cymbals?
I bring some things.
Great. I definitely have to scope them out.
Nice.
Because I've heard good things.
And I always see myself like a man swinging a hammer, and I believe now people are saying that I'm a master cymbals-smith. Oh my God! So it's a kind of fun. It's a very nice recognition.
Yeah. Well, yeah, very cool. Yeah, awesome to meet you. We could go for a little bit longer. It's about 2:30 now. We could do like maybe some questions. Anyone have questions? Well, yeah. Let's.
Nick.
Oh, there we go.
Got a mic for you?
He's got the mic for you there.
How does it feel to see some of your students, out in the wild here in the U.S.?
Proud. It's amazing because, I always give information. More information you have, more unique you become. and the drummers and the music just gain. It's just win. And I'm very proud of you, Mike, and Philip also, that's from Canada, and everybody that studied with me. And I have some closest friends in Brazil, Marcos from Argentina. He was my first student, and he's very good, very good. And I have Bruno Shell and a lot of people down there doing good stuff too.
I think I might actually know one of your students. He came to the shop just recently, actually. This reminds me, yeah. But yeah, well, we'll talk about that later.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, any more questions from anyone? Oh, there we go. Hey.
Yeah, I'm just curious how difficult it is to source your metals. You know, because there's, it definitely feels like the cymbals now don't sound like the old cymbals. So I'm wondering, is there just like something that you just can't get anymore?
No, actually, for example, copper, mostly the copper we use is recycled. And the way we do castings and the whole process changed during this time. Everything becomes more clean, and more clean we can become, believe, lost a little bit of the personality. You know, if you want a dirty sound with the inlays and the cymbal that the people buy, looking at, not hearing, it's without soul, you know. Well, this is my approach.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then, I mean, old cymbals versus new cymbals, we've talked a lot about that today. There's also just the age of the metal.
Yes, and I'm always keeping saying this, what's matter the sound. You need to connect some synergy with the cymbal, with the craftsman that make the cymbal going for it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I talked to one of my, he's a guy from Turkey who makes cymbals for our shop, and he was talking about the way that the, whether it's, I think coal burning.
Yes,
versus
coal burning. If it's electric,
he thought that made a difference.
We can get a charcoal burning, electric, gas, and wasted oil.
Right. Do you think that makes any difference in the way the metal comes out?
Yes, totally.
And what do you guys use?
We use gas on these days, but
better for the environment, though.
Yes, and we used wasted oil. It's a mess.
Yeah.
Dirty.
No good.
Dirty. And also, most of the Turkish companies use wood fire to make the rolling process, and then the tempering, pressing the belt, and we use gas.
Okay.
It's cleaner, but a little bit changing sound.
Sure. Yeah, every little thing adds up to the finished product.
It's 1,000 things that you need to mix together and get something. It's impossible to have two cymbals as equal, the same.
Sure.
Impossible.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. Any one over here? Yeah.
Gotcha. You know, I just wanted to bring up a point. You know, everything can be done exactly the same in the process of making a cymbal. But you got to remember, when that metal is gone through the ovens and it's put through the rollers, it's going to achieve a different grain every time depending which way it goes through the roller. That's why you could get like 20, 18-inch medium thin crashes where the process of the manufacturing is identical, but they're all going to sound different. Because there is still, like wood, there's grain in the metal. So
And you can control.
And that whole thing with old and new, I mean, I heard stories of like in Turkey, they'd go out into the fields and just get artillery shells and throw that shit in with the mix or whatever they could find, man. You know, you never know what was going to be happening. You know, it's basically an 80-20 thing, but there's still that X factor in there, you know, so it's something that happens.
And during the manufacture, there are some things that we cannot control. The grains, make sure the bronze, the pressure that you put in the lathe. You can remove the same amount of material, but you can control where. Kind of. So when you order a cymbal by weight, no, because the weight must be in a certain way that it explodes and the crash is more open. And for example, 100 kilograms crash. If 90% of the weight is still in the bell, it will sound different than the edge.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, gram weight. I mean, at the shop, at shops, we use it for inventory. Right. But it's not like a tell-all. Just because it's a light cymbal doesn't mean it's going to be great for jazz, and if it's a heavy cymbal, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to cut through very well. Yeah.
Nice.
But anyways, yeah, we should probably move on. Oh yeah. Thank you very much. We got Nicky Moon.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right. Everyone having a good time? Awesome. The show's been going well. I haven't really been able to go over there much, but I'm headed there.
Yeah.
That's right. I'm working hard up here. You can tell. But yeah. So tell me a little about yourself. Like how'd you get started?
Well, I'm almost 42, so I've been playing drums since age 6, so it's been a while.
Sure.
I grew up in
Where
Boston.
are you from?
I'm from
Boston.
Boston.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, I grew up about 30 minutes from the Zildjian factory.
Cool.
And I always wanted to work there, and I just could never get in. You know, back then, Paul Francis told me, he's like, unless somebody died, you know, you weren't getting in there.
Sure.
But I was just always fascinated with cymbals. That was my favorite part of playing drums. I just remember looking at them and just wondering, because it was so mysterious back then, you know. There was no information about any of it, really, other than marketing. So I was always curious, you know. One day around, I don't know, 2011, I found Craig Lauritsen's website.
Okay,
just
sure.
Boom, lightning bolt. Like, it's possible. You can do it, you know. You don't have to work at Zildjian. And then I just started experimenting, and
awesome.
From then till now.
Very cool, very cool. So yeah, tell me a little bit about like your first, first experiments. Like, did you start with hammering, or did you get a lathe, or?
No, this is what I spent from 2011 to 2016, just kind of on and off, just kind of messing around, not super serious, kind of like a hobby thing.
Sure.
The first time I took a Sabian B8 Pro, I put it on the concrete floor on my parents' porch and took a regular, claw hammer and just went, crack.
Let's see what happens.
All right, lesson 1, that doesn't work. Okay, and then
I refuse to lathe B8s. Yeah,
it's not fun.
It turns blue and it gets hot.
Yeah, you got to slow down the speed, and you can use a little bit of WD-40 on it.
Yeah, then it smokes.
Keeps it cool. Yeah, then it stinks. Yeah,
and then you get chatter really easily. And
it's tough.
I've turned a couple broken hi-hats into splashes for people, and it just
The thing about B8 lathing I found is if you do it without switching back and forth to B20 enough, you kind of get the feel for it. But then if I go back to working on B20 stuff for a while, the first B8s I do, I get those splinters again for a while, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah, B20 is like butter.
Yeah,
when you
it's
lathe it.
way better.
It's literally like cutting butter.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's really nice.
You really appreciate it once you try to do something else. Yeah,
definitely.
Sure. Yeah.
But awesome. Yeah. Do you want to talk about this that you brought here?
Yeah.
And then maybe kind of your process. What makes your cymbals? You've got a booth, right?
I have a booth. I'm
awesome.
13, I think.
I haven't been to it yet, but I definitely will.
Sure you'll make your rounds when this thing's done.
Right.
Well, let me see. I'll very quickly shoot through the history of I spent years kind of on my own, trial and error. 2016, I got in touch with Heather Stein, who was Matt Bettis's apprentice. we became friends. I flew to California. I spent 2 days with her. That was the first time I operated a cymbal lathe. She taught me, you know.
Matt Bettis taught me everything I know,
I
basically.
saw the video
He was
of
our,
that, yeah.
he built, we built the lathe together.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then 2018, I went to Brazil. I was the first American to go to Francisco's factory down there. I went back 2 years later again in 2020. And then 2 years ago, I flew to Istanbul. I visited the Amedia factory, and also I flew to Samsun, Turkey, and visited Mustafa Durrell, who was like our cymbal grandfather.
Yeah.
You know, of all the knowledge that came down to this clique. So, you know, I got a kind of a wide variety of, you know, info from the Brazilian, you know, way, and my own learning on my own. Stuff from Heather, and, you know, the Turkish stuff. So,
Very
have
cool.
like an international soup.
What's your, like, what's something that makes your cymbals, like, what's a trademark, you know, like?
I pride myself on making, I'm the first, I think, independent cymbalsmith that actually came out with like a series, like an actual, I wanted to have models and series and lines. The one series I came out with about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. I know Bettis did a few limited runs of, you know, limited run lines or whatever, but it wasn't like a dedicated series thing. I've always worked to get that level of consistency that you'd get from like a factory thing.
Okay.
But with also that indie vibe. I'm kind of trying to ride that line.
Sure.
So a lot of my stuff is, you know, back in the day, all the indie cymbalsmith stuff was just dark, spizzy, trashy, you know, as dark and thin and gnarly as you could get. And I wanted to kind of rock that pasty vibe a little bit, you know, and work that consistency into the thing, so.
Yeah, Matt's stuff, he's, I don't know if a lot of his cymbals are like this, but a lot of the ones that I've ended up with are like kind of like some novel approaches to hammering, like really, really, you know, big, enormous kind of like clusters throughout the cymbal.
The stink guy,
stuff like that, yeah.
One,
So it's, I call that a little bit more on the like leading edge avant-garde, you know.
Absolutely,
like, it's not, it's not like the old, because, you know, the traditional way to make the cymbals is a lot of the times they're lathed, and even if it's even a little bit less traditional to like hammer as the last step, you know, you lathe that off, that's the last step. But yeah, so do you do stuff along those lines?
Yeah, I mean, I like to kind of dip my toes in everything. Matt he also experimented with bringing in some power hammers. He had a couple of old Little Giant machines, which he used to get some really cool, I know that's like a dirty word, you know, power hammers, but like just another tool that we use to get different stuff
Like sometimes
happening.
you'll do some hand hammering, some...
Oh yeah, everything is always touched with the hand to get it just there.
Sure.
You know, you're never just going to use a machine. I mean, to me, that's crazy. But he was a big influence because he kind of brought that hybrid approach to it, and I saw the power in that, you know?
Yeah.
Being able to kind of, again, ride both worlds a little bit.
Right,
you know,
right.
The mechanized stuff, but then the human touch, so.
Yeah. What did you bring, what did you bring to the show?
I brought mostly prototypes. I like to bring prototypes to trade shows because that kind of guides like the next series. I see what people gravitate towards.
Sure.
Which, you know, it's a good...
Like, is it mostly rides, crash, a little bit
mostly
everything?
rides because that's what people want, you know.
Sure.
I find. Not a lot of indie cymbal customers buy crash cymbals.
Okay.
You know, they want like big 20 crash ride things or rides and the occasional hi-hat. I brought one splash into China.
Do you do like more thinner to like lighter weight stuff usually?
My preferred weight, and I think the ideal thickness for a cymbal is like the medium thin range.
Okay, sure.
Because you can still have a versatile, articulate, you know, semi-bright if you want cymbal, but you can also get into that dark and thin territory too.
Sure.
It really kind of gives you the best of all worlds. So everything's kind of, you know, I deviate from that, but that's sort of like my sweet spot.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, did you want to talk about? You're the first guy to bring like.
I brought a show
to
and tell.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm working on, you know, I want to keep walking sort of my own path with this whole thing. I've always tried to kind of go my own way, so I wanted to try working with a fully domestic, you know, bronze product because you know we all right now are getting our blanks from Turkey or maybe from Brazil or from China or whatever. And this is metal from the United States of America, and I'm working on forging this metal. This is an ingot, you know, which will eventually be a cymbal blank and eventually be a cymbal. So
awesome.
It's an alloy that's very similar to the B20 but the preparation of it is entirely different, and the trace elements are a little bit different. So
Yeah,
I still don't know yet what it will sound like as a cymbal, because I haven't gotten there yet, but
Sure.
we're on our way. This is probably about 2,100 gram, probably about 7-inch diameter ingot right now, so this would make, after breakage, edge cracking being accounted for, maybe like a real thin 20-inch ride or something like that.
Nice.
You
So
know,
you've
but
got.
it's pretty heavy. You can feel it.
Yeah,
It's-
you've got like rollers and.
No, I'm going to be forging these out the way that the Chinese make their blanks, which is with a power hammer.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, because I don't have the electrical capacity in my workshop to run a rolling mill.
Sure.
You need 3-phase at like I think 480 volts or 520 or something. So that's not doable.
Sure.
I'll get there maybe. So not that close.
Plenty of potential there.
Yeah, utilize that water power. But that's kind of my ongoing experiment now that I'm focused on.
Awesome.
I want to be able to deliver a 100% domestic product.
Yeah.
So
So yeah,
right
I
now
mean-
it's just Zildjian that's doing that.
What about, do you have anything, any like advice for people when it comes to like choosing cymbals that work for them?
Yeah, don't buy stuff based on what looks cool or what you see, like, oh hey, Benny Greb's playing the Meinl extra dry whatever thing. Cool, that's Benny Greb. You're not Benny Greb. You're you. So let's kind of figure out what you play. I always ask people what kind of sticks do they use, because that tells me a lot. about
Yeah. We haven't even talked about that at all
That's
today.
a huge.
It's a good thing to bring
Sticks
up.
are just, you could take the same cymbal and 2 different beads, 2 different thickness sticks, and it's just like a totally
Very.
different response.
Yeah.
The room is huge. Like when I hear my cymbals in a trade show hall versus in my workshop versus my testing room and everything, totally different.
Right.
So I want to get all that information up front so that when I'm making a custom piece for somebody, I deliver them what they actually need, even if it's what they think they don't want.
Sure.
It's my job to be the expert to tell them, no, you don't want that, you want this. Trust me. You came to me because I know, trust me. And then they email me 2 weeks later, like, yeah, you were right, dude.
You do a lot of like custom stuff. People will come to you for
Mostly,
like a very
yeah.
specific,
Yep. I do a lot of commission work for people that just have an idea. Hey, I really like this, Zildjian whatever thing, but I wish it was like this, Okay, cool. Let's, either take one of those and modify it to that, or let's start from scratch and build it out, depending on how different they want it to be from that original thing. And, sometimes I'll tell people, they just will come to me and say, hey, I want this Peisty 2002 thing or whatever. I'm like, well, just buy that then.
Sure.
I'm me, If you really like that cymbal, I appreciate the business, but, you'll probably be happier with that thing, so.
Yeah,
I
right
want
on.
people to have what they really want.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Make the drummers happy.
Yeah, but I've always tried to, I want consumers to be as educated as possible. There's a lot of BS, and there's a lot of misinformation and wrong information in this world. And I've done numerous podcasts and all kinds of social media stuff and whatever to try to give people the right information, the correct information, so they can make informed choices about what they're going to buy. Because these things aren't cheap, It's expensive. It's an investment, so.
Sure.
Do
you remember like when you started playing, like what cymbals you started with? Like what was your first set of cymbals?
Oh, yes. My first ride cymbal was a no-name. It had to have been like a brass something or other from the local music shop.
Sure. I've had a couple of those.
And it was horrific. My first pair of hi-hats was and I'm not to knock Zildjian. It's a budget product, but the bronze scimitar hi-hats.
Oh, yeah.
14, remember those
We get
things?
those in every
I
now
still
and
have tinnitus from those hi-hats. They're just so bright and
Sure.
shrill. And I hated them. And then eventually, the first time I got cymbals that I really loved, it was right after Sabian released the AAX. I remember just being like, wow, captivated with those.
Nice.
That really got my interests peaked.
Yeah, Sabian does a great job.
Yeah, they were just so clean. They were a little thinner. They were a little bit more they weren't so loud, and that really got me excited. So I
For
bought a
sure.
whole set of those.
Yeah. I remember watching them hand hammering stuff at the NAMM show, one of the NAMM shows.
Yeah,
and-
Charlie Brown.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. That dude's been doing it for 50-something years or whatever.
For sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really something to watch.
It's good.
And
It's
that
an iron shoulder.
they do that a lot more than Zildjian does. That's kind of their the HH stuff.
Zildjian doesn't do it at all.
Well, yeah, very. I think like Paul might
Paul
have done
would have done it like secretly
every
for
now
people,
and
but
then.
he'll
Yeah.
I'll let you. He'll tell
we
you
got
about that.
we got a couple secret ones. From
Yeah,
him,
you guys probably got some of them special ones, but
for the
yeah.
Zildjian Day that we used to do in New York. Yeah,
Yeah, that wasn't something they could advertise, right?
that was like
then-
prototype stuff. Yeah,
that goes against the whole we mechanize the process.
yeah,
thing.
you know, and I mean they make really, really fantastic cymbals.
Absolutely, I'm not knocking them. It's just it's a different approach. I mean,
Yeah.
That's the thing is like since if you look at when they came into the U.S. right, like 1920 something, post-industrial revolution, post-World War I, the American mentality was like, let's build a new America. Like he just Avidus the Third, I think it was. He wasn't even a cymbal maker. He's now in charge of the only cymbal company in the United States.
Yeah.
And he applied that industrial revolution mentality to let's just start making stuff like, because we're going to have a lot of customers, which they did. And that sort of permeated ever since then it's been production based.
Yeah.
Right? Even for the Turkish factories, they're just like produce, produce, produce. Now, guys like myself are like, wait a second, let's serve the piece one by one.
Yeah,
and see how far we can really take sound. You know what I mean?
Be creative. And,
Yeah, and like how good can we really get? And clearly, you can make some amazing stuff when you are willing to take way more time
Sure.
than you should. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not as profitable.
And hard work.
Yeah, it hurts, but it's just nice to play.
Hammering will make your make it very
Yeah,
strong.
yeah. We all have like little pain at the end of the day, but whatever.
Sure.
It's worth it.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for like? Well, yeah, you should definitely stop by the shop later.
I'd love to.
If you're around. How long are you in town for?
I'm here till Monday.
Monday. Yeah, we're open Monday.
Okay.
So yeah, if you maybe.
Me?
Not too
Oh,
far.
well then.
Maxwell Drums. We're in Glendale Heights, so we're actually pretty close to O'Hare. So you can like pop over on your way to O'Hare, maybe.
Okay.
If you're.
I drove.
From here, yeah, 20, 25 minutes. Yeah, right around there. We're kind of like halfway in between the city and here. You know.
All right.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, we need a lot of space, obviously.
Yeah.
Drums. It's not like we're a little guitar shop.
Yeah.
Drum
right.
sets take
Yeah,
up a
this
lot
stuff
of room.
is a lot of real estate, right?
Cymbals aren't too bad. They don't take up that much space. They're hard to inventory though. They're so hard to keep track of.
Yeah, they all do kind of look the same, you know.
That's the difficulty.
Yeah.
And that's why we do gram weights, you know.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, any advice to like aspiring, cymbal makers?
Yeah, be fearless. Just don't be afraid to break things. Really, that's the beginning. Like Francisco was saying, like you just have to destroy things, and then you go, okay, don't do that again. The muscle memory that you gain from making mistakes, those hard lessons really guide you like to become better. I think if you shortcut that, you're never going to be as good as somebody who suffered a little bit like along the way to really earn their way through. So just be willing to stink at it for a while, and you'll become great. You know.
Sure.
Don't be impatient. It takes time. Everything that's worth doing takes a great amount of time. You know.
Yeah, and yeah, I make cymbals. I like modify cymbals sometimes at the shop. I do have blanks, so sometimes I'll make some from scratch. But oftentimes we used to. It's funny, we don't anymore. But we used to always have tons of old A's. But these days, prices, I think, for everything have gone up so high that everyone wants to buy the used stuff because it's less expensive. So I actually don't even do it much anymore. But yeah, sometimes I'll like modify a cymbal and it'll just be like total disaster. I never want to do this again, but keep with it.
Yeah, that's the best advice I can give you.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't wait to check out your booth. And anyone got any questions? Open it up for some questions here. Matt? You got a mic for you if you want it, yeah.
1, 2. Okay. Nicky, big fan.
Oh, thank you.
Nicky, I'm a big fan. And,
thank you.
What was the most challenging piece that you had to make for someone, commission, whatever, and then you regretted letting it go? Like, oh my God, that sound was so nice. I should have kept that. Is like a main to, copy off of or what have you?
To be perfectly honest, I've always wanted other people to have them. I thought that was going to be a problem for me at first. Like, I'm going to want to keep everything. But I really, the kick that I get out of it is making something awesome, giving it to somebody else and seeing their eyes light up. And getting that email from them like, dude, you did it. You gave me the thing that I wanted. So like, I get it out of here. I don't want it. I want this stuff out in the world for people to enjoy.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I can't point to
Good question.
what was the hardest thing I ever made. I don't know. There's been a few, but yeah.
Yeah. Hey, we got a couple more.
I know you do some workshops and things like that for up-and-coming smiths. Do you want to talk about that a little bit and maybe what you have learned or gained from doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm out in, I recently moved to northeastern Pennsylvania. I'm out in farm country, so I have a nice, little bit of land there. It's isolated, and I have a nice workshop space. So I started allowing people to come out and stay with, in the area and do classes anywhere from 1 to 4 days. And I can take somebody with absolutely no experience and leave in 4 days with a set of cymbals that they made themselves with my guidance and help, and it's been great. It's really, really nice to be able to sort of condense like all the, my journey was tough and I've been around the world to get all this knowledge and I never had the luxury of just a domestic American teacher to go to, It's nice to be able to give that to people, to be able to contribute, and that's going to move the art form along. Like one of my students, Dave Sagerton, he's running my booth right now. He's probably my star pupil, He's really taken to it, and just seeing the level of joy it's given him in his life is just amazing. Like it's just such a great feeling. So, and whenever you teach something, it reinforces what you've learned. And even I'll learn stuff will come out of my mouth. I didn't even know that until I said it out loud, So it's great for that, But Francisco, he taught me so selflessly. He just was like, he was so willing to help me that I have to put that out. I can't just keep that. That has to go out into the world, He always told me knowledge that dies with you has no value, So I never forgot that.
Yeah, very cool. Where do you get your blanks from? Do you get a lot of them from him?
Over from Turkey. I've worked with his blanks. His are the best. It's just unfortunately it's tough to get stuff from Brazil because the import-export stuff is a little tricky right now.
It's difficult. Yeah.
But they're awesome. They're magic, man. He's the best in the universe. But there's a couple factories overseas in Turkey that I get them from, and different blanks from different foundries for very specific reasons. You guys were just talking about this. The melting with charcoal versus melting with induction versus melting with gas, it makes a huge difference. Reheating the ingots to roll them with wood versus gas versus electricity makes a huge difference. Like, so if you want a sort of shortcut to a jazz ride, get the old stuff, like the charcoal, dirty stuff, because it's just going to cut out like 4 layers of hammering that you have to do.
They told me there's like maybe one place in Istanbul that still does that, and most of them...
Most of them have switched over now because I think they're finally starting to introduce like some environmental regulations over there. They're like way behind.
Right.
But most of them are doing it. Also, I think for cost, because I think coal has become extremely expensive too.
Oh, yeah.
Like Bosphorus, for example, they're still doing it with coal and wood. They're never going to change that.
Really? Oh, interesting.
But it's tough. Like,
well, actually, one of my favorite rides that I owned was from like the first round of Bosphorus that we got 15 years ago. It was kind of right when they were real. I mean, they haven't been around for that long. Or maybe 20 years ago at this
15,
point.
20 years, yeah.
But
But
some really good
that's their
cymbals.
vibe, and they're sticking to it. I respect them for it. But it seems like most of the factories over there, they'll start that way, and then as soon as they're able to, because like an induction furnace is not cheap.
It's expensive, but
very
once
expensive.
you get it,
once you get it, it kind of
more-
pays for itself. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It ups the consistency and stuff. So I buy depending on what I'm making.
Yeah.
And it's good to have options too. You never want to just have one supplier.
Sure.
If something happens, then you got to back up. So,
Right. Yeah. Any more questions from the audience here? Yep,
We're at 3 o'clock. We gotta.
Oh yeah.
Keep
I gotta
moving
go.
along. We got the next.
We're actually past 3.
Yeah, we got the next clinic setting up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he doesn't start till 4, but yeah, so we still got Matt and Tim, so yeah, we got to move on. Yeah,
Okay,
thanks,
all
man.
right. Hey, well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I
and
really
then,
appreciate it. It's awesome to be a
for
part
your-
of this.
So Matt Nolan, everyone. For Matt, do you have a logo for him?
Is there a logo for it?
Should be.
I think so.
But yeah, so Matt, how was the flight over, my friend?
The flight was great, but my luggage didn't all get here until this morning. I got
Oh,
here
no.
on Thursday.
Did you bring some
and the
cymbals?
cymbals came this morning, so I got them at noon.
Very good.
But I worked okay.
I'm familiar with some of your work. I've seen you even do like gongs. You do all kinds of different stuff. If I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken.
cymbals, gongs, chimes, triangles, underwater percussion for crazy Danish people, all sorts.
Sure, very cool. Tell me a little bit about how you first got into just working with bronze and metal and everything.
Okay, it started out, as a drummer, like probably everyone in this room. Got particularly fascinated with cymbals around about 2004, 2005, coming back from electronic drums to acoustic. And just thought, oh, cymbals, they got so much interesting stuff in them, so much variation. And someone had asked me to do a dep gig for a garden party. Just bring a snare drum and one cymbal. I was like, one cymbal?
Sure.
So there was this quest for the one cymbal that would do everything.
Yeah.
I found an internet forum called cymbalholic.com. Learned a bunch of stuff from there, from people like Mike Schieber and Johan van der Sieper, Belgian guy, and learned about people like Steve Hubback, Michael Peisti, Roberto Spizzichino. I think Matt Bettis was starting up around a similar time. The two of us sort of were getting to grips with it and teaching ourselves, I guess, from little bits of information we could pick up.
Yeah. I've seen some of your rides before. One of my good friends, he's an absolute cymbal fanatic, and he ordered one special from you. And yeah, it was really something. I really liked it.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of had some of the old K vibes. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about your process, like how you do ride cymbals?
Yeah, sure. So I guess a bit like what Nicky was saying, I source blanks from different places for different sounds, or it's different legs up, I guess. Starting points, so sometimes from Japan, sometimes from Turkey, sometimes from Germany, like the Peisti type material. So starting from that and an idea of what sound the drummer's after, what volume level they play out, what genre it is, and maybe some references like, like on this record or on this video on YouTube.
Sure.
I'll, select a weight and a size and talk a bit back and forth and try to generate that sound in the shape and the taper and the lathing and all those good things.
Sure. So yeah, you use blanks from just all over. Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, and when it comes to hammering, what's your like hammer of choice? Do you have like?
My favorite it's like a 32 ounce, just like a ball peen engineer's hammer.
Okay.
It had a flat face and a round face, and I rounded the flat face some more, so I've got like a shallow curve on that one and then a tighter curve on the original ball end.
Nice.
And I'll use both sides of that. And then I have a smaller one. Did I say that's like 32 ounce? I have another 32 ounce and a 24 that I use for sort of hammering cups.
Right.
Or starting to hammer the cups. And then a bunch of other ones, like more like a bladesmithing hammer that I use sometimes, which is like a dog head rather than a balanced one.
Okay.
Yeah, so many hammers.
And then you definitely have to go into some more of these kind of, avant-garde percussion instruments. Like, tell me, the underwater?
Okay, yeah. So there's this group in Denmark called Beyond Music, and they have a project called Aquasonic.
Okay.
Which started with this singer wondering if she could sing underwater.
Okay.
So she kind of figured out this technique where she kind of faces face down and holds an air pocket in her mouth, and then exhales and inhales on alternate notes.
Okay.
To keep the bubble in, yet keep producing sound. So they've got hydrophones in these tanks of water that these musicians are in. They've got like two singers, some custom instruments like hurdy-gurdy type things, like a hand crank that bows metal strings and then frets, so you can play notes with them.
I have to hear this.
Yeah, look it up. There's lots
You'll
of
have to show me.
YouTube videos of this. What else? They've got like a hydrolophone, which is like a pipe organ, but it actually works with flowing water rather than flowing air. And you sort of cover up finger holes a bit like a flute or a recorder, and it changes the pitch. They've got an underwater violinist, and he has... they are all transphibians, yes.
Indeed.
The violinist, he has like 100% carbon fiber violin. I think most carbon fiber violins still have some wood parts in them, but he had to get 100%
custom
carbon fiber one, so it wouldn't sort of swell up in the water.
Right.
And he has some of those, like the glass balls. It's a glass harmonica that sort of spins around, and you put wet fingers on, and they produce pitches.
So what did you make for them?
So they have a drummer and a percussionist as well.
All right.
They were using things like Tibetan bowls and like doumbeks and things underwater. And they wanted a whole lot of things retuning, and they wanted me to experiment to find instruments that worked. Because you put a cymbal underwater, it just goes clunk. There's no sustains, no high frequencies. So we were trying to find ways to get normal percussion sounds, or a range of percussion sounds,
right,
that would work underwater. And ultimately, the key was like adding lots of mass and making things quite big. So like the sound wave on the front and the back, they don't cancel so easily because the wavelengths are really long in water. So it's easy for things to mute themselves.
Right. It travels forever, right? It's just...
Yeah, but it travels forever so long as you can make the sound in the first place.
Sure.
And things like adding jingles to stuff, tambourine jingles all over the place, helps like generate some sizzle that you otherwise don't have at all. So we did a bunch of work with like a submarine sonar guy in Texas, like University of Texas, and a normal air room acoustician from Denmark, and a bunch of other instrument makers, and figured it all out. Like, strange effects, like moving an instrument a centimetre or an inch to the left or right, totally changes how loud it is in a small tank. Because the tank itself, because of the conductivity of the water, it becomes part of the instrument. It's not like in a room where you're kind of decoupled from it.
Wow, that's very cool.
Yeah.
And then, am I mistaken? Do you make you've made like gongs that have like kind of like different shape, right?
Yes.
I think I've seen that.
I guess when I started out, I was trying to explore all things different and unusual.
Sure.
Tended to attract the avant-garde people more than anything.
Sure.
So yeah, I made like batwing-shaped gongs and...
very cool.
What else? Trying to think of the other shapes. Because one of the very first things I did was cut a broken, cracked cymbal into like the Batman logo.
Oh, nice.
And that caused people to ask, oh, can you make me one of those? Can you make me one of those? So then I deliberately started buying broken cymbals to cut into this shape. But then some of them started to like flip inside out, the inverted.
Right.
So I thought, okay, I need to learn how to hammer the tension back into these. And then that's where it all started. So the batwing gong, I guess, was an evolution of that cymbal.
Wow. You're probably kind of very cool sound, but different.
Yeah, sort of a cross between a thunder sheet and a wind gong.
Yeah.
And really good for bowing, getting all sorts of like spooky horror film type sounds.
Oh, I love sound, like creating sounds like that and using them in the studio. Oh yeah, so much fun. One of my favorite things to do.
Yeah.
We don't have too much time, so I'm just going to open it up for questions now. And also, you guys can probably start bringing drums up if you need to. That wouldn't bother me. I don't know.
That's fine.
So yeah, anyone, any questions? For Matt?
Silence.
Over there.
1 sec.
Matt, thank you for being here. I have a question about your chime making.
Yes.
When you are making the chimes, where did you find all the formulas for the diameter and wall thickness and length of the pipe that you would need? Is this published somewhere?
There are a couple of books out there, yes. One is The Physics of Percussion Instruments by Thomas Rossing.
Okay.
And there's an older one. It's called like Music, Physics and Engineering or something like that by Olson.
Olson?
Olson, yeah. Harry F. Olson, I think. There are some formulas in there, and you can look stuff up, on the web if you know the right thing to type in. That and a little bit of experimentation, trial and error as well, really.
Okay, and do they also address how to tune the overtones?
Nobody addresses how to tune the overtones.
Okay.
That is deeply secret stuff.
Any other questions? What would you recommend for somebody who's trying to get into that, for trying to get a specific pitch out of a percussion instrument?
Okay, well, in general, if it's a long thing like a chime, then the longer it is, the lower pitched it's going to be. The thicker it is, the higher pitched it's going to be. If you put extra mass on it, like a weight on the end, like a cap on a chime, that's also going to lower the pitch, but it's going to lower the lower overtones more than the higher ones. It's going to kind of stretch them out. What else? Cymbals and plates and things that bend are a bit strange. Well, I guess they're all a bit strange, because they're not really working like the other tuned instruments we know, like vibrating strings or vibrating air columns, where everything is like linear, inversely proportional to length. Because metal percussion instruments tend to be vibrating in a transverse mode, it's not really elasticity, it's more stiffness that is the restoring force. So everything gets non-linear and inharmonic, and what's the other word I'm looking for? Well, more related to like the square root of the length rather than the length itself. Those two books I mentioned are good sources, and there's some books by Bart Hopkins, a bit more sort of DIY musical instrument making, but there's some good stuff in some of his books, and that's more accessible, less sort of science and formulae. I guess that's it.
All right, yeah. Another one up here in front. Jake's running, he's getting his exercise for today.
So I saw in some of your YouTube videos, and it's been a while since I've kind of forgotten some of the details, but I know you were doing heat treatments on things, and you're doing that a fair amount on your own.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody else I've heard says, no, don't do heat. Don't do heat. You're just going to kill it. And then we hear about like the foundries and the big things there. What is the potential for a random person with a workshop to be able to do heat sort of treatments?
Great question.
Okay, so at the beginning, when you're making a blank or you're tempering a blank ready to hammer it, that's the point when you can relatively safely use heat so long as you do it right. You're turning something that is brittle into a malleable, ductile piece of metal. But then once you start working it, hammering it or even lathing it quite hard, the metal gets harder and harder the more work you put into it, to the point where it can become brittle if you overwork it. And you can't really do anything, but certainly with B20 bronze, with heat after that point, without taking it right back to a blank again, essentially, and losing a lot of the work you've put in. With B8 and B15 and maybe, I guess, brass and nickel silver, you can do a heating to anneal them afterwards to bring out the overtones if it's got very dead from overhammering. But with B20, you just have to wait. It could take a couple of days, could take a couple of weeks for the higher frequencies and the dryness to sort of go away after the work. Does that answer your question? You can talk to me afterwards. We'll go into more detail.
All right. Do you like heat it and quench it?
Yeah. The first B20 blanks I used were from Germany. They were the Peisty style ones, without cups. And I did manage to work them for a while without tempering them. But if I wanted a more extreme cup, larger or more curved, they would tend to crack from all the cold working. So I built a furnace so that I could temper them myself, which I still tend to do. I'll buy a bunch of blanks in advance, and as soon as you get them, you can work them. But a couple of months later, if you want to hand hammer a cup, you're at risk of cracking. So I tend to always temper them before I start.
Yeah, we were talking about that a lot.
Makes life easier.
Because like over time, they just, they get like harder.
Yeah, it's like an exponential decay. the metal's trying to move itself back to its original state, and
Sure.
it'll do that quickly at the beginning and then slow down. And,
Incredible stuff, bronze.
it is. All metals are constantly changing. You picture them as solid and remaining the same, but certainly with things like B20 bronze, it's all those molecules are moving all the time. The crystal's boundaries are changing.
Right.
600 years later, it's going to fall apart. There's not a lot you can do about it.
Sure.
But for that window of a couple of hundred years, it's a great symbol.
Yeah.
But constantly changing, very slowly.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So last question here. Just kind of any new really cool stuff you have that you want to tell everyone about? Something you've been working on recently, or just something that's really exciting?
Gosh, is there anything interesting or exciting? There've been some other people asking about underwater stuff.
Sure.
Like there's a guy doing something for the San Francisco Ballet. He wants some crotales that he can dip on a pedal into water.
That.
But he wants bass crotales, so that's getting doubly complicated because they need resonator tubes, really.
Have you made crotales before?
I've made high ones, yeah, like at the top of the normal range,
Sure.
above when people need extra notes.
Crotales are very expensive. Yeah, that's one thing. I wanted to buy some for
They're
the
quite
shop,
expensive,
and I looked at the
yeah.
price, and it's like, no, just for myself. Yeah, that's very cool. If I do get some, maybe I'll get them from you one of these days.
Maybe,
Yeah, we'll see.
Sure.
But anyways, yeah, and then if anyone has any more questions, tomorrow at 12, you're going to be there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
I will
Well, yeah.
be there.
Thanks for coming, Matt. Yeah. Thank you. And then we got one more. We're going to have to be real quick. They're starting to set up for he starts at 4, right around. All right, so yeah, great to meet you.
Great to meet you too.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. And usually just kind of start out by just telling me a little bit about yourself, like where you're from,
So I'm from North Carolina. If you hear my hoarse voice, I've been trying to speak over the volume in that showroom. So
It gets loud.
Yeah, it gets a little louder there.
Definitely.
Yeah, from North Carolina, and I studied music in school in Boone, North Carolina. Came out of that, did a little bit of playing and touring, and then decided I wanted a consistent day job. And so I always wanted to build a snare drum. And long story short, built one snare drum, was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Started a drum company, which led me into working with accessories, which inevitably led me to cymbals, and that's where my headspace is.
Nice.
Completely right now, but I've got a couple employees that...
Yeah, I was reading about you. It sounds like you've done a fair amount of studio work and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to get experience doing studio work and touring work, and then I've just always had a love for jazz music and a love for the lineage of music, and it's always interesting to me that you can find a drummer you really love, and then you can study what that drummer studied and
Sure.
get kind of that golden thread that runs throughout all of music, and you start to see how everything is connected, and your mind expands, and that's always been my favorite thing about it. So.
Right on. So yeah, tell me a little bit about your how you first kind of entered the cymbal world. Like what was the first? Did you modify cymbals, or were you working with blanks? What did you do?
I started with actually cutting cymbals up to make weird accessories.
Oh, cool.
So I had a cracked cymbal, I had a metal grinder.
Don't throw it away.
Yeah, don't throw it away. Just cut it up, and I hooked a little dog tag to it and started hanging it around different parts of the drum kit, kind of getting those white noise effects kind of things. And then I started reaching out to all my buddies, say, do you have cracked cymbals? And that led me to continue to cut cymbals up and make weird things, but inevitably I was like, I want to take this hammer and just see what happens if I just hit this piece of bronze 100 times, and then what happens if I flip it over, hit it 100 times the other side, and that just started out this snowball of curiosity.
Sure.
And seeing how does this metal work, and how is it possible to hammer this thing so many times and it's not cracking and it's changing its shape, and if I do it in this way, it kind of does one thing, and it's a fascinating thing to do. So it's been awesome.
And so the cymbals. Do you have a booth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm definitely come scope it out.
Yeah. Definitely.
I may have seen some of your cymbals before, but I don't think so. So yeah, it'll be.
Cool. Yeah.
Can you describe like the sound you're going for, or maybe your something that makes your cymbals kind of special and unique?
I think I don't try to be special or unique. I don't really try to have a different take. I think I'm just looking to see what's possible to create. And my head is typically in acoustic music. It's pretty easy to find loud rock and roll cymbals. So cymbals that sound a little bit more nuanced and interesting is where my head's at. I hesitate saying jazz only because there's like a lot of music. There's a lot of music that uses interesting, nuanced sounds. So
Sure. Like kind of like hand hammered lighter weight cymbals, maybe.
lighter weight cymbals, yeah. I started.
Everyone's into them these days.
Everybody's into them.
Yeah.
I'm actually headed towards. I've had this idea in my head where I've been trying to flesh out just how the concept of perspective and how when we're sitting behind the kit, we hear one thing, but there's a totally different sound or a different sound happening in front of the kit.
Yeah.
And that, I'm living in that zone because a lot of drummers just approach what they hear and they're not thinking ahead to what is happening in front and how it would translate in a band situation. So
Sure.
the very first time I was ever introduced to this concept was with the drummer Bernard Purdy came to my school and he was playing and I was standing right behind him. And the way he hit the toms was weird to me. I didn't understand why he hit the toms so hard. And then he went back to the snare and the ride cymbal, and it was like a softer volume. And it didn't make sense standing behind it. And I asked him, as a naive 19-year-old, like, why do you play like that? I hope I didn't offend him, but I was like, why are you playing like that?
Sure.
He was like, well, I'm mixing myself. I'm mixing this drum kit so that it translates. And I think
he's a great player.
Great
I
player,
really
yeah,
like
obviously like one of the greatest, And,
Yeah.
that got my brain thinking about, is it possible to train yourself to think ahead of what you just hear behind the kit? So when I make a cymbal, oftentimes, we like to play cymbals that don't like hurt our ears. So we will gravitate towards these thinner cymbals, more wobbly cymbals. But then if you hear those cymbals recorded or if you're playing a live situation, it's like, well, that cymbal sounds a little muddy. Like what I'm playing isn't translating.
Mm-hmm.
And so you start to think about what you actually need to accomplish the task of creating music with other people. And so it's a balance too, because oftentimes people will say, can you make the Nefertiti ride? Or can you make the ride from this record? And then you're having to think, okay, Tony playing that ride with the recording equipment available of the day, translated through my phone or my headphones, and there's all these different points of contact that are changing how we are perceiving that sound. So you have to sort of think ahead, is it possible to make a Nefertiti ride that sounds like the recorded version, but when you're actually in the room playing it, and it's a totally different thing. So it's complex, and when you talk to people, you have to really, I try to get as deep as possible with speaking about the different terminologies that we're using to make sure we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are we speaking the same language? When you say dark or dry or complex, what do you mean?
The words we use can
Right.
be.
There's no dictionary of sound that says dark is this. It's all how we are perceiving it, and it's oftentimes it's all how deep our ears are. How much music have we listened to? How broad is the scope of the kind of music we've ingested? That's going to dictate the level at which we're going to be able to categorize different sounds.
Sure.
And so I find it fascinating to talk to someone regardless of the level of depth and see how can we reach a point of agreement and understanding of each other so that I can make a cymbal that will do the job for that drummer.
Right on.
Maybe that's a little complex, but that's kind of where my...
Do you still play a lot, or are you mostly just focusing? So you're doing a lot of everything.
I try to
wearing many
to
hats.
play. I try to play
That's
all
what
the
you
cymbals.
gotta do,
Yeah, all the cymbals that I make. I try to get them in at least a different room. I've got my shop, and it sounds a certain way, and I know.
Nice.
I can kind of think, well, it sounds this way in this room. In a different kind of room, it'll sound a little bit different.
What kind of lathe do you have? Do you got a?
So I have I'm on my fourth lathe. I've had extremely dangerous lathes before I knew what I was doing, and it's amazing. I have all my fingers, but I have a lathe that has a piece on it that was converted from it used to be in a Krispy Kreme donut shop.
Ooh.
And it was punching holes in donuts and filling it with jelly.
Making me hungry.
Right, yeah. So the guy that helped me design it was an engineer that works for Krispy Kreme, and he said he had that piece lying around. He's like, I can help you make a lathe.
Nice.
So he's like wiping glaze out of it when he was setting it up to be part of my lathe. So I have this amazing lathe that is...
So these are sweet cymbals?
They're very sweet, yeah. It adds that nice touch of sweetness to every sound, yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, if there's anything else, like what did you bring to the show? Like what do you have? Maybe you describe like a lot of rides, a lot of hi-hats, or what you got?
Yeah, a lot of, I don't really classify them differently between rides and crashes. I just make cymbals that crash and cymbals that ride.
Sure,
you know?
yeah.
I brought way too many cymbals for the show, but I figured why not? You know, I got like 40, or had like 40.
I mean, this is the ultimate. I mean, we've never had this many cymbal smiths at the show, so it's really, really cool. Yeah, it's been fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for everyone who stuck around for the whole time. Yeah. It's been fantastic. Yeah, we can do like maybe like 1 or 2 questions. Yeah, how are we doing time wise here? It's like, yeah, they gotta start getting set up. So, anyone have any questions for Timothy? We're gonna. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, got one over there. Sorry, yours got shorter.
It's all good. It's all good.
See, they.
So, for the stack rings, are you now having to like make cymbal blanks and cut them up that like would normally be cymbals just to make them because there's like a
Yeah, I don't do that. I feel like it would be a little sacrilege to do that. So I still source the cracked material from different places to cut them up and to make the little accessories. But
cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And then we're all going to be getting together. You're going to be here tomorrow. Yeah, 12. So if anyone has any other questions, that's a good time to come talk to all 9 of you guys, actually. Yeah. And yeah, like maybe one last question for you. Yeah, anything really cool and new, exciting you've got like kind of in the
works.
Yeah, in the works.
Yeah, I'm working on. I've been working on patinas a lot recently.
Okay, we talked about that once today. Yeah.
Yeah, a good patina process and.
Vinegar apparently works.
Vinegar's
well,
great. Lemon's great. Salt is great. And then there's some different chemical patinas that are cool. And I think my head in one space is heading towards this idea of like cymbals that sound kind of like they're cracked or sound like garbage can lids. Like I've
real
had
trashy.
Not necessarily in the trashy zone, but like I've been talking with drummers that, and it kind of is related to the old K sort of sound where it's really dirty and it has some really funky overtones, and if you were to play it behind, you might go, oh God, I'm wondering if there's something there where you can maybe take that sound and refine it and create like a series around it. So I have a series I call the Tributary series, which is I use these crazy thick patinas, and I kind of have this sense of abandon when I'm sitting down at the end, and I'll just like smack it a couple random places, and it kind of disrupts it in a odd way. And because it's like Spiz said that one of the things Spiz said in the little documentary you can look up is that he doesn't necessarily like beautiful sounds. He likes ugly sounds because he feels like ugly sounds have soul to them.
Yeah, that's a good.
And
that's a good quote.
And in the whole.
He's a big influence on you, Spiz.
Huge influence, and as is like Dave Collingwood back there. He's a big influence. And honestly, every cymbal-smith that's here is like heroes of mine and now buddies of mine. So we're
all really lucky to be here. Yeah,
it's really amazing. So
yeah.
But he used to say that. He said that like you can go anywhere and get a beautiful sounding cymbal, but like a truly inspiring, ugly sounding cymbal is like is rare and special. And so there's something there. I think that I guess my head is sort of in that direction.
Yeah, when you've played like thousands and thousands of cymbals, something stands out. It's like, ooh, that's interesting. I could get to know that cymbal.
And there's a way I think to like incorporate a sense of mastery into it. It's not just funky and ugly for the sake of funky and ugly.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of bigger name brands that are making these kind of funky sounding cymbals that to me kind of lay flat. But anyway, that's kind of one area at least among many others. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then anything else you wanna add on that?
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. We probably could do like maybe 1 or 2 more questions if anybody else has one. Anyone? No. Yep. One more.
So I have had my drum company for 10 years, and I've been in the cymbal world for 5. 5 years, yeah. And that's like at various levels of engagement with it. I would say probably the last 3 years have been just all in with making cymbals all the time. I've got employees now that work the drums the way that kind of some of the designs that I made early on, I've got those guys doing that so that I can keep my head in the cymbal world, which is all encompassing and all-consuming if you're a little OCD like me.
Sure. Well, yeah, awesome. So yeah, again, we're going to be over there at 12 o'clock tomorrow with all these guys. So thanks for staying, everybody, and yeah, everybody take care. Thanks for coming. Okay. I've got something real special to show you here. Just look at all these cymbals from all of the craftsmen at the show. Basically, pretty much everyone except one is represented here.